Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am just sorting out some technical issues. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can. I've got a few technical issues happening right now, so I am going to be setting up the other camera in just a few seconds. So yeah, but I hope you can all hear me. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to be getting the feeds up in a little bit. We haven't got, there's nothing coming from court yet, because obviously it doesn't start till 1 o'clock. I'm going to change angles in a second to the tripod. I'm still just setting that up, to be honest with you. But good morning, everyone. How are you all? Are you looking forward to today's court? Today in court, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. It really is. So for those of you that may well be triggered. Oh, no, that's not what I'm trying to put on screen. Bear with me. There we go. This one. Just on the screen there, you can see I have some helpline numbers. I've got a helpline number for the UK, or 2 numbers in the UK and 1 in the US. So if you are triggered by things that happen, if you are upset, if you are affected by anything that is being discussed in today's streams, then do please reach out for support to those numbers. As I say, I'm going to be setting this up. Now, how today's going to work, I'm going to do my face for the first hour and catch you up on any of the bits of the case that you might not kind of been following. Obviously, when this started, nobody knew exactly how massive of a shit show this was going to be. By the way, I'm wearing my Freddy Krueger top today. Does anybody know why I'm wearing a Freddy Krueger top, first of all? If you do, put it in the comments. But yeah, hi. So I think I'm streaming on both channels. Oh, my screen. This laptop is literally falling apart. And when I say falling apart, I mean literally falling apart. I need to get another one, but you know, money, it's very expensive. But yeah, I am desperately trying to get a hold of another laptop at some point because this one is just falling apart. Good morning to the major. Right, let's see who is here on the live. Hang on a second. I'll tell you what, before I do that, I am going to need, oh no, it's fine. The screen's just about holding its place. Right, okay, so let's see who's here on the live so far. We've got the Major. Good morning, Major. We've got Nanette's Necessities. Good morning, Nanette. We've got Patricia. Good morning, Patricia. We've got Ed Etherington. Hello, Ed. And Forry Holly Willoughby there as support mechanism as well. You managed to catch a live stream at last, Patricia. Yes, I know. Fabulous. I hope you're well. Good afternoon to everyone, says Patricia. Good afternoon to you, my darling. There is life after DV. You're living proof of it. Absolutely. As an SA survivor myself, yeah, I totally agree with you. I am going to re-angle the screen. Don't worry. We're going to move on to the other screen in a second. So yeah, are we putting on slow mode and sub mode? I will be, Major. Thank you for the reminder. Let me just do that as well. I was trying to make sure that I've got my makeup here that I need to get ready, that I've got the streams in place, that I've got the support line numbers down, that screen was up. I've changed my little ident in the top corner, as you can see. But then I also had to make sure that the dogs were fed and watered and everything was running all nice, if that makes sense. So yeah, all of the above, all of the above. Oh, that's my glasses. I was wondering what was reflecting then. Right, let's have a look, see. So, doopy-doopy-doo. Let me, what am I looking for? What am I doing? Who am I? Teapot Tuesday, trousers. Hang on a sec. Let me go into my YouTube studio. It's going to be a bit wobbly and wibbly for a second, everyone. I do apologize. Again, the back end of my laptop is literally falling apart. It's held on with a clip at the moment, like a market stall clip thing, because the hinges at the back have completely come undone. So every time you open it up, it wants to open up this way from like if that's the screen, it now wants to do this because the hinge there where it interlocks is just not hinged. it's kind of together, but it's almost like it's missing a locking screw or something. I don't know. I don't know what's happening with it, but yes. So let me just go and do the YouTubey things. Come on, let's do the things. Let's do the things. So it's going to be really interesting today in court. I am fascinated already as to what's going to be happening. I am looking for certain things today to appear. So basically, what we know is going to happen from court is that when they open at 1 o'clock, once the jury are in, probably the first hour is going to be all of the. I thought we should be on sub mode and everything, Major. That should all be on. It should all be on, my darling. Okay, you can talk to me, Nanette. She's napping as I took her for. Oh, bless you. Very Holly Willoughby is sleeping. Right, let me just pop this up. Pop this on. Onto the tripod. So sub mode, slow mode, all of that is on. If you haven't already and you would like to support the channel, you can go ahead and do the YouTubey things, the subscribe and ding that bell and like the video if you are. You can see, look at this, Lisa Reacts. I'm going to be doing a series of Lisa Reacts. Some of it will be live streams like this to big events. Most of it, though, will be pre-recorded. I've already recorded one for the other channel, for the Witchy channel. If you're watching this, I do have 2 live streams, yeah. If you're watching this on the Witchy channel, good morning to you, good afternoon to you as well. I think I'm able to jump across to both, am I? Yes, I am. So we'll see what happens. YouTube doesn't always like it if, in fact, I can't tell. But yeah, YouTube doesn't always like it. I know what you mean, Annette. I've got 2 streams, so yes, you're right. I need to do it on the other channel as well. Thank you. Let me have a look. Yes, I've just realised what you were saying. Sometimes my brain takes a little while to catch up. So what we're going to do today is basically for the first 45 minutes or so, or for the first bit of time, I'm just going to sit here and do my face with you while we talk about the case, while we talk about what our feelings are, what people think, what people have seen, and I can catch you up on events so far as much as I can, sort of the things that I've seen in the case, the things that have happened across the case, really, from both Amber's, or the 2 cases, from Amber's side and from Jonny's side. It has been really fascinating. It's been really interesting. There's been a lot of really confusing testimony, to be fair, but also there's been a lot of contradictory evidence, which we'll be able to talk about now. The jury instructions, as I say, once the judge comes in and the jury's in place and everybody's done their thing, before we get to closing arguments, we're going to have the jury instructions. Now, oh, hang on a second, that's the door. I need to go out to the door. Bear with. Intermission time. That could be our meds. Oh, God. Hang on, I'm back, everyone. Sorry about that. That wasn't medications arriving by the delivery people. That was somebody trying to blag me that they are Virgin will be turning off the internet, and so you need to sign up with someone else. And oh my God. Balls, big hairy balls. Right then, so good morning to everybody here on the streams. We are going to be doing, can I actually jump between, I don't know whether I can jump between screens. Oh, it doesn't matter, does it? Because I'm on both as on StreamYard. Right then, so let me just, apologies everyone. It's been one of those mornings so far, as you can probably tell. But yes, as Ed says, don't forget to give this live a thumbs up. Nanette says Amanda's here. I can't see Amanda here. Oh, yeah, there you are. I can see you, Amanda. Hi, my darling. Hi. Hi, Amanda Greenslade. Right, let me pop this on the tripod and then we'll get cracking with the necking. So as I say, court is coming in at 2 o'clock our time, or court is in session at 2 o'clock our time. So as it is in the States right now in Virginia, it will be quarter past 8, 20 past 8, something like that, quarter past 8 in the morning. The judges will all be in there. So the judge will be in there, the legal teams will all be in there. They'll be going through the last minute bits of evidence that they needed and the last minute bits to make sure that the case file that gets given to the jury has everything in. So that's what they were doing yesterday. When the court ended, when the jury left yesterday, they stayed behind for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, sorting through the jury instructions, sorting through the wording, going through, you know, if we say that this is this, and then Amber's team, it was very complicated, but we'll go through all of that as we get cracking. So we're going to just have a nice sort of 40 minutes or so chatty time. As it comes in on the feeds, oh gosh, go away. As it comes in on the feeds, what we'll end up doing is basically then listening to the court instructions. Now, they're going to be quite boring and they're going to be quite detailed, but that's fine. We will still do our best to react to that. And then we get the exciting bits, which are the closing arguments. Now, the closing arguments, I'm expecting, so it goes Jonny's team first, then Amber's team. Why am I wearing a Freddy Krueger t-shirt? Does anybody know why I'm wearing a Freddy Krueger t-shirt? I will angle this. You'll see it on a better angle in a second once I switch to this phone camera rather than on the laptop. So once I do this, this one on. There we go. There we go. So, hi everyone. Let me just get rid of the other feed. And then, there we go. I will tell you. So, the reason I have a Johnny Depp, no, I don't. The reason I have a Freddy Krueger t-shirt on is because it was Johnny Depp's first film. His first film role was Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, #1. So there you go. I bet you didn't know that. Some of you obviously didn't know that, did you? So yes, that was his first film role. So that is why I thought I don't have any other Johnny Depp one or anything else. Oh gosh, Nanette, I always put my lashes on at the end. I always do my lashes at the end if I'm wearing lashes, that is. Right, there we go. Let's sort out the lighting, sort this out. There we go. We're all on the stream on here, so that's all good. And then I'm just going to jump on and find one of the court streams now. So yes, so Does everybody, how, words would help, wouldn't they? Is everybody caught up? Do we all know what has happened so far in the case, or do you want me to give you kind of a quick catch up on events so far? Let me know if you want that. Otherwise, if you're all kind of up to date, there's no point me going back over it and literally teaching, you know, your grandmother to suck eggs, really, is there? So if we don't need to go through everything that's happened, you know, the road to court so far, if we don't need to do that, then it makes sense not to do that, if that makes sense. Right, let's have a little look-see. So I'm just going to go and grab the and there we go. I'm just going to grab the court feed. So where are we at right now? Let's have a look. No, thank you. I don't want a... I'll watch the first few bits of the advert. Hang on. There we go. So, right, fabulous. There we go. We are on. I've got the court feed up. Quick catch up. You've got no idea at all. All right, Major. So then, how this is... right, Jesus. So, do we know who the other ones are? Do we know... hang on. What am I trying to do, Lise? Let's just do one thing. I'm adding a share to the feed. That's what I'm doing. Sorry, everyone. I'm just sharing the screen so that I can grab the screen. Is that the one I want? Yes, that's the one I want. There we go. So I've got this StreamYard up. No, I don't. Not the StreamYard. There we go. So that's the court feed at the moment. That's probably not the live feed. That was probably overnight, although it could be the live feed, to be fair. It really could. That's from the Law and Crime Network on the YouTubes. Now, they are notorious for copyright striking channels and things, or copyright claiming, but I think seeing as this is a this has come from the courts, it should be fine to screen. So yeah, right then. So a quick catch up. So Johnny Depp is an actor. Amber Heard, allegedly, no, she is an actress. So they obviously got married back in 2009, I think it was, something like that, or 2012. Anyway, they got married a while ago. They then got divorced, and just before she filed for divorce, Amber Heard went to a magistrate's court in the States and applied for something called a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order. Basically, if you've seen the pictures that came out on TMZ and other news sources, it was on People magazine in the States, basically, and some of the tabloids over here. Basically, she appeared in court with what looked like a bruise. Oh, sorry, it was on this side, on her right cheek. Now, there is an argument about whether or not that was a bruise, but can anyone go in to watch then? There's only 100 people allowed in court in the gallery, and there's been all sorts of drama happening because LawTube, some of the lawyers from YouTube and the legal commentators have been wanting to get in, and the queue system has been completely just corrupted, and people have queue jumped, and all sorts has been going on. But yeah, so that's been a bit of a pain, but anybody can line up for those 100 spaces. Now, because today's only closing arguments, there's probably not going to be that many people in the gallery. There may be, but it isn't going to be a major thing. It's not like waiting for the verdict. However, I can also see for the last day in court before we get to verdicts, I can see this being a super busy day. But anyway, right. So they got divorced. So she appeared on the front cover of People magazine and in all the tabloids and everything else with this bruise. temporary restraining order against Johnny Depp for domestic violence, for DV. So what we're going to do on this stream, we're going to, if I say DV, it's those words I just said. If it's SA, it's it's, oh God, how to say it without saying it. If it's SA, then it's assault, and DV is domestic violence, trying to not get blocked and all that stuff by YouTube. So DV and SA. So basically, she accused him of DV, and said that he had hit her, and that's what the bruise was. That's why he needed she needed a TRO, and then she filed for divorce shortly after. Now, at the time, it was the day that Alice Through the Looking Glass came out. Interesting timing. And Jonny was actually on tour with his band, the Hollywood Vampires, I think it's called. They were on tour, and he was going to a premiere and all of this. And then all of a sudden, instead of getting his picture in the press at this, the launch of his film, premiere of his film, and gigging with his band, instead of all of that, he was in the press because she had alleged DV. So that all happened. Then she filed for divorce, and the divorce was, I believe, the divorce filings were sealed, but basically there was a statement made, a joint statement made, that basically said neither party entered into this marriage or divorce for money. Neither party was violent, and we both accept that, we were both to blame for things that went wrong. Words to that effect. Now, the wording on that was really interesting because basically it seemed to absolve Amber Heard of any gold digging, and because it said there was no, it was like there was no, yes, Eddie, it was like there's been no violence in this relationship. I have got my tablet here. I will try and pull up some exact quotes and things as we go along. So again, if you are triggered, or if somebody you know is triggered or affected by these issues, there are some helpline numbers running on the bottom of the screen there. So in the UK, there's victim support and also the Refuge, which are two 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helplines. In the States, there's the National DV helpline, National DV hotline, that should read. And that is a 24/7 line as well. And there is a text line running in the States. Google is your friend if you are a victim, or if you know somebody who is affected by these issues, then do please Google for support in your area. But those numbers down there, just write them down just in case, because anybody at any time could tell you that they are a victim, but also anyone at any time could become a victim. So there. Right, moving on. So basically, let's get some makeup ready as well and do my face while I'm sat here. I've got an eye on the court stream. I'll just bob that back on. As you can see, they're just going through the security check with the sheriffs to get people in and make sure everything is safe. Unfortunately, Amber yesterday on the stand did say that she's received death threats. She's received some really vicious commentary and threats against her and her child. She said yesterday on the stand that somebody threatened to put a kid in the microwave, things like that. It's not, I mean, that just sounds ridiculous, but from her perspective, regardless of the truth of the matter, this does not warrant death threats. This does not warrant that level of violence. Violence should not beget violence. It really shouldn't. I can understand why feelings are running so hot, but that really shouldn't. But anyway, back to what happened. So they got divorced, and Johnny Depp was still filming the Pirates franchise and other things, Fantastic Beasts 2 or whatever that one was. And yeah, so all of that was running, all of that was going on. And then in because of the TRO, because of the restraining order, gossip columns, and the word was getting out that this was a Amber kept saying to people basically that this was allegedly, in my opinion, for entertainment purposes only, that this was a violent relationship. And so basically his name started to get sullied. He carried on working, everything was fine. Everybody knows that, you know, Johnny Depp lives a rock star lifestyle of drinking drugs and all of that. And yeah, so all of that was happening, but that was kind of fine. That lifestyle was fine because he was a rock star film star. What really started to affect his career was all of these allegations. And then in 2018, Amber Heard wrote a column, an opinion piece, an op-ed it's called, which is an opinion piece designed to get on the front page of the Washington Post, which is it will be similar. It's not a tabloid, but it's kind of, so it's kind of like, I guess in the UK, it would be like the Times. So it's not a tabloid, but it's not a broadsheet. It's kind of a little bit in between. And basically she wrote this piece linking in with the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union. And basically they put together this article, and in it she talks about her experience as a woman in Hollywood who came out as a victim of DV, and basically how the Hollywood system closed around Jonny and excluded her allegedly, and how once she stepped forward and told her story, how she was doubly abused through the press, harassed because of the media, basically. And so she claimed in that op-ed piece, which I read, it's not particularly well written. You can tell where it's kind of, it's written by committee, and you can see that in it. But she does talk about kind of her experiences and how important it is for people to stand up and have their voice and speak their truth and all of that. And she talks about in that article, she talks about how once she came forward, it was like people didn't believe her, people were shunning her, and that she was doubly victimized is basically what the extent of the piece was, and how charities like the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, how they can speak up for victims and speak up for people that have suffered. So on its face, that would, if that had been written, if that exact same article had been written by an actual DV survivor, it would be quite powerful, and I would be sat here saying absolutely 100% amazing, you know, yes, you know, oh my God, you're so brave, your story, you know, finding the courage to tell your story, all of that, I would be absolutely saluting her for. However, a lot of what she said didn't ring true. And where we're at now is the fact that Johnny Depp is now suing her for defamation. So a couple of years back, he sued The Sun in the UK because The Sun called him a wife beater, and he basically took them to court. Now, the rules of evidence are different in the UK to the States. The way that the case is handled is different. The way that you know, the what's it called? Oh my God, my brain's just farted. The requirement to prove their case is different. Okay, so in the States, when he's now suing Amber Heard for defamation, that's a whole different thing than what he sued The Sun for. He basically sued The Sun. He lost the case because The Sun said, the judge in the UK basically said, there is a restraining order in place, a TRO for DV. The divorce statement alluded to certain other things, and actually on the surface of all of this information, with Amber's story, the depositions that Amber had said, it would appear that you know, there was a DV relationship and all of that. So he lost the case, and the Sun and the Times, which owns the Sun, repeatedly call him a wife beater to this day, in the press, all over, with this case. Wife beater Johnny Depp sues ex-wife, blah blah blah. Those are the headlines in the UK. Now he's now suing her for defamation for that Washington Post article. She's countersuing because after that article came out, a lawyer that was working for Johnny Depp at the time, whether or not he still is under, is not allowed to be talked about because they've got client-lawyer privilege. So yes, this is his lawyer. Anything else is privilege, basically. So, and the reason for this is, say if you accidentally commit a crime, right? So you're walking down the street quite happily, and the cash machine starts churning out £50 notes, and you pick them all up, right? Or you put in to withdraw, you know, 20 quid, and all of a sudden the cash point keeps giving you £20, but your balance doesn't go down. And then for some reason it's giving you like 200 quid, and you go, oh, I'm just going to keep it. Or say a bigger crime than that. Say I don't know, you were the hidden bank robber from the train robbery, right? The great train robbery. You were the one that to this day, you've got the bags of money over there, all these hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds, and you're suddenly going, right, I kind of want to do the right thing. You have to have lawyer client privilege so that you can go to a lawyer and say, so I did this bank robbery 35 years ago, and I've still got all the money in my loft. Now, no one knows that I've done this. How do I like come forward? What do I do from here? Or say you've avoided paying tax for like 5 years, and you've not paid any tax, and you go to a lawyer and say, so I didn't pay any tax for 5 years. I kind of want to clear it with the, you know, the government. What do I do so that I'm not put in jail immediately? So you have to have attorney-client privilege or lawyer-client privilege, so that basically you can have that conversation with a lawyer, and then the lawyer says, right, what we need to do is, I'll speak to this person, see if we can speak to that person, do this, work out a deal, blah, blah, blah. So you have to have that privilege. Otherwise, the lawyer would be duty bound, and it's the same in the UK, would be duty bound to say, you've just admitted to committing this crime 35 years ago, great train robbery or whenever it was, or tax fraud, or, you know, $200 for my cash machine, 200 quid for my cash machine. You've just admitted to this crime. Therefore, hello, police. Yes, come and arrest this person. Thank you. So there has to be that privilege has to be in place. It basically means then that everybody is able to get legal advice, basically, even if they have committed a crime. So because all that comes under the attorney-client privilege, his attorney made some comments about Amber Heard and all of the stuff that she alleged. And he basically said Amber Heard and her friends took part in the biggest hoax. They messed up their flat. They threw some wine around. They called the police for a DV incident. The police turned up and found nothing wrong. No problems, nothing amiss, nothing wrong with this, no damage anywhere. So they messed up the flat a bit and called them back. And this is a massive hoax. And that's what his lawyer said. But she's now countersuing Johnny Depp for $100 million, saying that his lawyer saying that she was hoaxing has damaged her career, damaged her future, damaged her chances of employment, and that she now is seen in Hollywood as being a hoaxer and a fake. So there's an argument that happens. So there's two cases running concurrently. Johnny Depp suing Amber for defamation because she in the Washington Post article, she accused him of all of this stuff. She didn't mention him by name, but she said, 2 years ago, when I got divorced, I became the public spokesperson for DV. And then my life fell apart even worse, or words to that effect. And so basically everybody goes, oh, Amber Heard, 2018. When did she get divorced? Oh, 2016. Who was that she divorced? That was Johnny Depp. So how did it, Anita's asking, how did it end up coming to England and going to court? I'll come on to that in a second, because I'll just deal with this Johnny Depp thing. So because she wrote that article, that's one thing. So there's 3 counts of defamation that he's suing her for. One is the print article in the Washington Post. Now, that one may or may not go. The second one is for also, I can't remember what the third one is, but the second one, and this is the important one, he could win this. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep train of thought. The second one is basically saying that Amber Heard tweeted, she didn't retweet, she tweeted out, I wrote this article and I am very proud of it and stand by everything that it says, or something, words to that effect again. And the title on the online version of that story said something like Amber Heard, SA or SV, sexual violence survivor, or Amber Heard says, I was a survivor of SV and then my life fell apart, or again, words to that effect, but the words SV, which is big time, that was in the headline. And what he's basically saying is that because she tweeted that out and said that this is what the headline, and this is the headline, this is a link to the article, and that because that headline was there, and when you tweet it, it comes up, and so you've got what you write, and then you've got the headline, it comes up on the tweets, but that was, she was republishing it to her audience, which of course she was, because she wanted everybody to read her story. So Johnny Depp is suing her for defamation on that tweet, basically saying that the headline that she didn't write, she has basically co-opted. In other words, by saying, I wrote this article, she's basically taking authorship, or she's claiming authorship of the article and the headline. And that headline is basically the one that was the final nail in the coffin, basically. So that's what he's suing her for. Now, Major, you say, how did it end up coming to England and going to court? Because the Sun kept referring to Johnny Depp as a wife beater. So because the Sun was referring to him as a wife beater, he basically said, I'm not, and I'm going to take you to court. Now, in the UK, the court system is very, very different. It's a closed court. Obviously, you don't have cameras in our courts as much, if ever. And basically, it was again, a defamation trial, I believe, but the UK law is different. And so because in the UK, they deposed lots of different people, and the judge basically, the way it came down, I believe, was that the judge basically went, overall, with all of the evidence, I believe there is a case that Amber Heard was a victim. Therefore, if she's ever been hit or punched, which she claims, and there's a TRO in the States, then therefore that phrase, wife beater, is not defamation. Because if it's true, it can't be defamation. So you can't say, oh, Lisa's that fat bitch. That's not defamation. Calling me a bitch might be, but calling me fat isn't defamation, because I am overweight, so I am fat. That isn't a defamation. It's hurtful, it's insulting words, it's something I don't like, but I can't sue you for that, because defamation has to be said that something is untrue and that there is malice behind it. Now, so Johnny, yeah, as you say, Major, Johnny didn't sue Amber Heard in the UK, he sued the Sun. And the Sun's legal team pulled in Amber Heard for a deposition, basically saying, yes, I was abused, this is what happened, this is my story. The evidence from the TRO, the divorce filing, all of that, the Sun pulled in all of those bits in that case to show that, on balance, there is evidence that he hit her without going into as much detail as the States one has done, and therefore that story isn't defamation, and therefore, which is why they still continually use that phrase about Johnny Depp. So that's basically where we're at. He's now suing her for defamation because of the article that she published, and because it stopped his career. He hasn't worked since Pirates 5. So there was a contract in place, an expectation for him to be in Pirates 6. Her team have basically made a great massive deal about the fact that Pirates of the Caribbean Part 5 only earned $800,000. Only earned 800,000, and the previous one had earned more than that. So oh my god, this film only made $800,000. Therefore, we're gonna drop Johnny Depp because it's obviously down to him. So her side is saying that he was never going to be in the 6th film, because look how much money they lost from the previous one. However, they didn't lose that money because Pirates 5, because Johnny Depp was in Pirates 5. They lost that money because it wasn't as good a film. It just wasn't as good a film. And so therefore, but we're still talking about an $800,000 profit on $800,000 box office. So we're talking like, oh, this film didn't quite make $1 billion at the box office. Ooh, okay, but you still made 800,000. So any studio would want that. So basically, he stopped working. He wasn't able to work. He didn't do Pirates 6, which is worth $20 million to him. He got dropped from Fantastic Beasts 3. So he got dropped from that. So Pirates is Disney, Fantastic Beasts is Warner Brothers. He also had an ongoing development contract with Warner Brothers, which basically saw him have a really good relationship with them in terms of future films, making there's this film coming up, there's this really interesting script, it can go to. So there was all of this stuff behind the scenes that he was instrumental in, and basically that all stopped when she published this article, because suddenly it was putting it wasn't just like tabloid gossip, it wasn't just what she had said in the divorce. This was full on allegations in a reputable article, a reputable publication like the Washington Post. And so that's why he's suing her, basically. He's suing for 50 million, which actually, when you look at, he was due 20 million plus for Pirate 6 and future films, and he hasn't worked in the 4 years since. Now, some of that's going to be COVID related, but he hasn't worked in 4 years. He hasn't got a major movie deal. He's apparently just been signed through this court case for a King Richard biopic or something. I don't know, but it's at a much lower amount. Whereas in the same time, Amber Heard did Justice League, Aquaman, and Aquaman 2. But she's countersuing because she says that her role in Aquaman 2 was reduced because of his lawyer's statements that it was a hoax. Now, interestingly, through this case, we've had witnesses. So the Disney execs have basically said there was no standing contract for Pirates 6. However, if Pirates 5, if everything would have gone forward, it would have basically, it would have, more than likely, he would have been in it. They then turned around and said, well, actually, we weren't sure. We were going to go in another direction, creative differences, blah, blah, blah. Warner Brothers execs have gone on and basically said that between Amber Heard and Jason Momoa in Aquaman, there was no chemistry. And that if there was chemistry on screen, it was because they edited it in such a way. They had to really edit the film to get a chemistry there that wasn't there on set. Now, that's quite damning. And they also said that when they looked at that, they actually wanted to recast Amber Heard in the second Aquaman film because there was no chemistry and because her acting wasn't up to snuff, basically. And They even looked at other actresses. And in the end, it came down to, well, instead of all of that, we'll just minimize her role. So instead of her being like a main part of the film, we'll minimize her role down and we'll take the film in a slightly different direction where she's in it, but only really like, here she is, there she is. So basically, that was her role in Aquaman 2. It got reduced. She's claiming that was because of what Jonny's lawyer said. However, all of the Hollywood people are like, no, there was no chemistry. You and Jason didn't spark. You're supposed to be this like amazing love story in the comics. That didn't happen. Therefore, it's nothing to do with that. It's because you weren't good at your job, love, basically. Yeah, she was also in The Stand, which is a mini series in the States. I think is eight or 10 episodes. And in that one, she earned $200,000 per episode, which ain't bad. She got, nearly 2 million in that. So Major, you say that he needs to his name cleared. Yeah, this is all about clearing his name. That's all that this is. So that he can work again, basically. But I hope he donates the money if he wins, as he doesn't need it. There's all sorts about whether or not he needs it, because his ex-manager, his ex-financial manager, basically stole millions and millions and millions from him, and millions from him, millions, like millions. So he's not poor, obviously, but he doesn't need 50 million. I think you're right. Now, because he's suing 50 million, if he wins, it doesn't mean he's going to get 50 million. He could get $1. He could get 7 million. A lot of the legal team, a lot of the law tube, it's called, a lot of the legal sort of commentators are absolutely under the impression that if the jury may just award him $7 million, which is the amount that he gave to her in the divorce settlement. So she got $7 million. She also got another $7.8 million worth of stuff paid off, bills paid off, marital bills paid off, commitments paid off, all of that. So basically, her divorce settlement was actually worth to her $14.8 million. Of the $7 million that she got in cash, she said she was donating it. Hi, Lizzie J. She said that she was donating it to ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, CHLA. Now, that money never went. Oh, 10 episodes, but she was only in 6 of them. I thought it was, yeah, okay, thanks, Nanette. That's really useful. Thank you, darling, for that. By the way, I saw your video that you posted about people talking about their emotions and their mental health. I completely agree, my darling. I think that when people are struggling, we should say we're struggling. You all know I've talked about my mental health. You all know I talk about being on antidepressants for the last, oh God, hang on. I was 18 when I started them. So what's that? That's nearly 10 years now. But yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, so the jury get to decide how much they get. Now, there's also a possibility that Johnny Depp's team in closing may well just say, do you know what? Give him $1. Get him to win the case and just give him $1. He doesn't want the money. He just wants to work. He wants his name cleared. He wants this off his back, basically, which I think would be incredibly powerful. And I think that would be amazing. But I can also see the jury going, no, do you know what? Amber Heard said she was going to donate this 7 million. She hasn't done. She had all of the money 13 months before he sued her. The reason that she said under oath was that she hasn't paid the money yet because he sued her. So, I was going to pay it and then he sued me, so now I'm not paying it. I don't know why. Excuse me. I don't know what being sued has to do with you making a payment that you pledged. But this is it. It was pledged. She said that she donated the money when in actual fact it was a pledge and the money hasn't been paid. Of the money that has been paid, the majority of it has come from her ex-boyfriend, Elon Musk, who she apparently allegedly was having an affair with whilst she was with Johnny Depp, and also James Franco, who she was also apparently allegedly having an affair with while she was with Johnny Depp. Interesting. Interesting that the man she was having an affair with, and then after she split with Johnny Depp, had an open relationship, not an open relationship, but had openly had a relationship with Elon Musk. He paid $500,000 to the ACLU as part of her pledge. So £500,000 went. In total, it's less than £2 million that have been paid. But what happened to the rest of it? She's had the money. She didn't pay it. She's saying she's still intending to pay it, but maybe I will, but maybe I won't. But now I'm being sued. She also said, which was really funny on the stand. I'm just looking at the court stream. She said on the stand that actually, is this just people coming in from? Yeah, I think this was earlier when they were waiting for Johnny Depp to arrive. Oh, I like that. Oh, I cut away. Hang on, I cut away too soon then. Someone's got the most amazing t-shirt. Someone's got a t-shirt that Rufus needs. It says happy wife, happy life. That person there, that black t-shirt. Oh my God, that's amazing. Rufus says that all the time. He's like, happy wife, happy life. And I'm like, yes, my darling. I love jewelry. Yeah, so this was waiting for Johnny Depp to arrive. Now he's already going to be there. This is going to be pre-recorded, I'm sure. But yes, we'll come out of that for now. We'll keep an eye on that. But yes, so all of that's been going on. It's been fascinating on the stand. There's been lots of witnesses called, as you can imagine. We've had testimony from so Johnny's Depp have called various people, including the manager of an apartment or a place that they were staying in Australia when he was filming Pirates 5, when they had a huge bust up and she threw allegedly a bottle of vodka and it obliterated his finger, basically took the end of his middle finger off. So she's apparently thrown that. It basically hit on a bar, hit a marble bar, and exploded and took his finger off. There was that's where she also claimed that he SA'd her, and basically that there was broken glass all over the floor. She cut her feet up to ribbons, cut all her arms up, being pushed back against the worktop, which had a load of glass on, and all of this. So basically, that's what she's saying. However, there are photos of all of these other things, like bruises and things, which aren't necessarily true. But there's these other photos that she's brought into evidence. But she never took photos of any of this. She never sought medical advice or medical help for being SA'd with a vodka bottle that she thought was broken, for sliced real good, as she described it, her feet, her arms that were all sliced up. She never sought medical advice for any of that. Now, I'm not saying that DV survivors always seek medical advice. A lot of times they don't. But if she's cut to the extent that she said she was, the doctors that arrived would have basically gone, right, let's sort your feet out. The manager of basically his butler, who is this lovely guy called Ben King from the UK, he used to buttle for the Queen and everything, where he basically was the person that was sorting things out in Australia, house manager, basically managing the household, making sure that, the wine is there and that cars and security, and basically just part of his management team. He basically took the stand and said that there was not a lot of there was a lot of damage to the property after this fight, but there wasn't glass on the floor. There wasn't this, that, and the other. There was she alleged that he painted a penis on the picture, on a picture that had to get replaced. This Ben King guy said that never happened. So yeah, I think it was something like $85,000 worth of damage done to replace marble stairs that have got chips, the marble bars, things that have been damaged in this huge, massive argument. There's been audio played from both of them, from arguments that happened, and some of the audio has been incredibly triggering for a lot of people. Again, if you are triggered by anything in this case or anything on this stream, there are some helpline numbers on the bottom of the screen that will continue to scroll throughout this stream. So do please write those numbers down, even if you are not currently in a situation where you're able to get support or get help, if you're able to do it, grab a screenshot on your phone maybe, if you need those numbers. There's 2 from the UK and 1 from the US, because I know that basically the people that view this channel are mainly from those 2. Now, obviously, I don't normally do reactions. I have no legal training. I do have a little bit of counseling training and a lot of life experience as a survivor of violence in my life, and also as a R survivor, R word survivor. So there's a lot of things that I have opinions about personally from my own experience, but also with my counseling support, because I'm not a qualified counsellor. I am only ever a helper with counselling skills, because I haven't got that qualification, but I have got some counselling training. And with that hat on, I try and separate my personal feelings from what I'm witnessing in this case. Now, I have been following this from day one. I followed Emily D. Baker over on YouTube. I've been following Runkle of the Bailey. I've been following the DUI guy. There's a brand new channel called Law in Lumber with somebody who basically made a viral video that shows that the damage done that Amber Heard alleged was done by Jonny's boot to a bed couldn't have happened the way that she said. So yeah, across the board, there is a lot of evidence, and I've been following those lawyers, Nate the lawyer, Natalie lawyer chick, a lot of these legal commentators, and a lot of these lawyers from the States I've been following as we've gone along. I have been fascinated by this case. I remember the O.J. Simpson case being on and being absolutely amazed by it and following that. And this is like the O.J. Simpson case of our era. It really is. It's been shocking at times. It has been triggering at times. Jonny Depp has taken the stand and just been the epitome of kind of dignified, even though in some of the messages he has said some very hurtful, hateful, and nasty things about his ex-wife, and so is she about him. It'll be interesting to see whether the jury instructions go out and to see whether they are instructed to disregard any of those, or to see what happens. It's just going to be thoroughly interesting. I'm waiting. The court feed doesn't appear to be, we don't appear to be in the court yet. I don't know whether, see, none of this is live, so oh, this might be live, but if this is live, it's really interesting that they haven't yet gone to, they're not yet in court. It was supposed to start at 9 a.m. their time, which is 2 o'clock in the UK, 2 o'clock UK time, and it hasn't actually begun yet. So that's really interesting as to what's going on. Let me just double check on a different stream. Nope, we don't have a different stream. So yeah, so we're just waiting for them all to arrive. But no, it is fascinating what's happening. So yeah, so there's been hundreds of witnesses, hundreds of bits of audio, hundreds of videos. There's been stuff that Amber has claimed that has been blatantly shown to be a lie. There's been stuff where she's allegedly taken somebody else's DV story and claimed it as her own, which is the whole thing. She's allegedly done just, you know, imagine the worst things that somebody in this situation could do, and she's basically done. She's lied about XYZ all the way through, and it's just been it's been weird, to be honest with you. In lots of cases, it has been very, very, very strange. A lot of her reactions, and even to the point where the other lawyers can't believe some of the stuff she's saying. When she says something, it's almost like saying, "Oh, I went to a party last Friday," and then 2 weeks later they say to her, "Do you remember when you said you were at a party last Friday?" And she says, "No, I wasn't at a party last Friday." That's really, really. Oh, hang on. Right, there's a different feed. I'm seeing a different feed. Let me see whether I can find it, because apparently this feed from Law and Crime is not the only one. Right, bear with everybody. I'm going to try and find a more up-to-date feed. Right, hang on a second. I realize what's happened. There we go. Right, sorry everyone, we are back. Here we go, bring the feed in. I've just realized, how bloody stupid is that? We have been on, they are in court. Jesus, right, here we go. Hang on, bear with, I know, right? YouTube fails. I did say I thought it was very dark earlier. Right, here we go. Hang on, I'm just trying to get a feed, a live feed up. This is not a live feed. Why can't I find a live feed? Bear with me. Sorry, everybody. Live now. There we go. This is the one I'm wanting. Here we go, everyone. Sorry about this. I've just realized I was on the wrong bloody feed. No wonder, no wonder, no wonder. Right, here we go. So they asked, I mean, we're not missing very much, to be fair. They are only talking about the jury instructions, but it is going to be interesting to see what is actually happening with that. So then here we go. Click on the thing, click on the thing. There we go. Now we are live. Let's, can you hear the audio? Can anybody hear the audio? Hang on. Let's bring that in.
Statements seen by someone other than Ms. Heard. Number 4, are any of the statements false? Number 5, were any of the statements made with actual malice? Number 6, if Ms. Heard is entitled to recover, what is the amount of Ms. Heard's damages? On these issues, Ms. Heard has the burden of proof. Your decisions on these issues must be governed by the instructions that follow. You shall only return your verdict for Mr. Depp on his claim of defamation about the following statement if he has proved by the greater weight of the evidence that, number 1, Ms. Heard made or published the following statement. Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. And number 2, the statement was about Mr. Depp. And number 3, the statement is false. And number 4, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp. And number 5, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. And number 6, due to the circumstances surrounding the publication of this statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp. And if Mr. Depp further proved by clear and convincing evidence, number 7, that Ms. Heard made the statement with actual malice. If Mr. Depp failed to prove any one or more of the 7 elements above, then you shall find your verdict for Ms. Heard with respect to the above statement. You shall only return your verdict for Mr. Depp on his claim for defamation about the following statement if he has proved by the greater weight of evidence that, number 1, Ms. Heard made or published the following statement. Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. And number 2, the statement was about Mr. Depp. And number 3, the statement is false. Number 4, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp. And number
I think
5,
it's
the
got this.
defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. And number 6, due to the circumstances surrounding the publication of the statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp. And if Mr. Depp further proved by clear and convincing evidence, number 7, that Ms. Heard made the statement with actual malice. If Mr. Depp failed to prove any one or more of the 7 elements above, then you shall find your verdict for Ms. Heard with respect to the above statement. You shall only return your verdict for Mr. Depp on his claim for defamation about the following statement if he has proved by the greater weight of the evidence that number 1, Ms. Heard made or published the following statement. I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. And number 2, the statement was about Mr. Depp. And number 3, the statement is false. And number 4, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp. And number 5, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. And number 6, due to the circumstances surrounding the publication of the statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp.
Yes.
And if Mr. Depp further proved by clear and convincing evidence, number 7, that Ms. Heard made the statement with actual malice. If Mr. Depp failed to prove any one or more of the 7 elements above, then you shall find your verdict for Ms. Heard with respect to the above statement. You shall only return your verdict for Ms. Heard on her claim for defamation about the following statement if she has proved by the greater weight of the evidence that, number 1, Adam Waldman, while acting as an agent for Mr. Depp, made or published the following statement. Amber Heard and her friends in the media use fake sexual violence allegations as both a sword and a shield, depending on their needs. They have selected some of her sexual violence hoax facts as the sword, inflicting them on the public and Mr. Depp. And number 2, the statement is about Ms. Heard. And number 3, the statement was seen by someone other than Ms. Heard. And number 4, the statement is false. And if Ms. Heard further proved by clear and convincing evidence, number 5, that the statement by Mr. Waldman was made with actual malice. If Ms. Heard failed to prove any one or more of the 5 elements above, then you shall find your verdict for Mr. Depp with respect to the above statement.
I think they'll find it
You
was
shall
false.
only return your verdict for Ms. Heard on her claim for defamation about the following statement if she has proved by the greater weight of the evidence that, number 1, Adam Waldman, while acting as an agent for Mr. Depp, made or published the following statement. Quite simply, this was an ambush, a hoax. They set up Mr. Depp up by calling the cops, but the first attempt didn't do the trick. The officers came to the penthouses, thoroughly searched and interviewed, and left after seeing no damage to face or property. So Amber and her friends spilled a little wine and roughed the place up, got their stories straight under the direction of a lawyer and publicist, and then placed a second call to 911. And number 2, the statement is about Ms. Heard. And number 3, the statement was seen by someone other than Ms. Heard. And 4, the statement is false. And if Ms. Heard further proved by clear and convincing evidence, number 5, that the statement by Mr. Waldman was made with actual malice. If Ms. Heard failed to prove any one or more of the 5 elements above, then you shall find your verdict for Mr. Depp with respect to the above statement. You shall only return your verdict for Ms. Heard on her claim for defamation about the following statement if she has proved by the greater weight of the evidence that, number 1, Adam Waldman, while acting as an agent for Mr. Depp, made or published the following statement. We have reached the beginning of the end of Ms. Heard's abuse hoax against Johnny Depp. And number 2, the statement is about Ms. Heard. And number 3, the statement was seen by someone other than Ms. Heard. And number 4, the statement is false. And if Ms. Heard further proved by clear and convincing evidence, number 5, the statement by Mr. Waldman was made with actual malice. If Ms. Heard failed to prove any one or more of the 5 elements above, then you shall find your verdict for Mr. Depp with respect to the above statement. When used in these instructions, the phrase, the greater weight of the evidence, also sometimes called the preponderance of the evidence, means the evidence which you find more persuasive when evaluated against all the evidence that has been admitted in the case. The testimony of one witness whom you believe carries the greater weight of the
because it's a
evidence.
comfort motion.
When a party has the burden of proving any issue by clear and convincing evidence, he or she must produce evidence that creates in your minds a firm belief or conviction that he or she has proved the
will rock gently to
a statement
themselves.
that is not directly defamatory may nonetheless suggest a defamatory meaning in an indirect way.
He's
that is by
spoken about
implication.
having
In
ADHD.
determining whether any of the statements have a defamatory implication,
That was just
you must
interesting
consider
to
the
me.
op-ed as a whole and the circumstances surrounding its publication. You should consider if these circumstances show that the words used are defamatory and relate to Mr. Depp. However, such circumstances cannot extend the meaning of the words used in the op-ed beyond their ordinary and common meaning. The proposed implication must be reasonably drawn from the words actually used. In determining whether any of the statements in the op-ed are false and defamatory as to Mr. Depp, you must read the statements in the context of the op-ed as a whole. This means you may not seize on any one word, phrase, or image, or consider only one particular statement, phrase, or passage in isolation. In determining whether any of Mr. Waldman's statements are false and defamatory, you must read those statements in context as a whole. This means you may not seize on any one word, phrase, or image, or consider only one particular statement, phrase, or passage in isolation.
Got to be everything, yeah.
Both parties have the burden of proving actual malice by clear and convincing evidence. To meet this burden, each party must prove by clear and convincing evidence that each statement was made or published, number one, with knowledge that the statement was false, or number two, so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth, that is, with a high degree of awareness that the statement was probably false. Actual malice is a subjective analysis that looks to the state of the mind of the person who made the statement. If the person who made the statement is believed it was substantially accurate at the time of its publication, then it does not give rise to liability for defamation. The term actual malice should not be confused with the more common meanings of the word malice, such as ill will or hatred. Actual malice is not established merely because an author was motivated by ill will, prejudice, hostility, hatred, contempt, or even a desire to injure another.
Closing arguments, because this
in order
is just
to find that Ms. Heard republished the original op-ed, including the headline, through a tweet on December 19, 2018, you must find that she retransmitted the defamatory material or redistributed the material with the goal of reaching a new audience. Stated differently, republication occurs when the speaker has affirmatively reiterated the statement. A hyperlink directing readers to a previous article on the same website does not direct the previous article to a new audience. Merely linking to an article does not amount to republication, but adding content to a linked article may constitute republication. You must determine whether any added content was intended to reach a new audience. If you find any content added to the hyperlink was intended to reach a new audience, it constitutes a republication. Further, if you find a republication occurred on December 19, 2018, then in order to find for Mr. Depp against Ms. Heard, you must also find by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard made this republication with actual malice. A principal is a person or legal entity with power or right to control the means and methods of performance by which another person performs the principal's work. An agent is the person who is subject to the power or right of a principal to control the means and methods of performing the work. An attorney has the express authority to do everything which the client expressly authorized him to do, and the authority to do everything necessary or incidental to the purpose for which he was retained. Ms. Heard has the burden of proving by the greater weight of the evidence that Mr. Waldman was an agent of Mr. Depp, and that Mr. Waldman was acting within the scope of his agency when he made the statements.
While we're doing all the...
You must remember that there is no burden on either party to prove the truth of any of the statements. Both parties were free to offer proof of truth, but by doing so, they do not assume the burden of convincing you of the truth of the statements. The burden remains on each party to prove that the statements he or she complains of are false. The rules of evidence ordinarily do not permit witnesses to testify as to opinions or conclusions. An exception to this rule exists as to those whom we call expert witnesses. Witnesses who, by education and experience, have become expert in some art, science, profession, or calling may state their opinions as to relevant and material matters in which they profess to be expert, and may also state their reasons for the opinion.
Put in the chat what you think I should be an expert witness
and give it such weight as you may think it deserves.
And what would you be an expert witness on? What would you be in court classed as an expert witness for? If you should conclude that the reasons given in support of the opinion are not sound, or if you feel that it is outweighed by other evidence, you may disregard the opinion entirely. Just double checking the sound. There's no echoing.
Testimony of expert witnesses whose opinions differ. You may consider the ability and character of the witnesses, their actions upon the witness stand, the weight and process of the reasoning by which they support their opinion, their possible bias in favor of the side
it's because of the way the cameras are set up, and also her face is very tiny, so you can see what she's like.
In considering the weight to be given to the testimony of expert witnesses, you should consider the basis for his or her opinion and the manner by which he or she arrived at it, and the underlying fact and data upon which
she's not a very good actress. That's what it comes down to.
Asked whether statements
you can see it all crossing her face, like in real time.
Are reliable authority of a type normally relied upon by others in his or her field of expertise. This evidence is permitted to test the knowledge, accuracy, and opinions of the expert witness. And if such evidence is established as a reliable authority by expert testimony, it may be considered by you along with the other evidence in the case. In considering the evidence, you're not limited to the bald statements of the witnesses. In other words, you're not limited solely to what you see and hear as the witnesses testify. On the contrary, you are permitted to draw from the facts which you find to have been proven such reasonable inferences as may seem justified in the light of your own experience. During the trial of this case, certain testimony has been presented to you by way of video depositions. You should give this testimony the same consideration as to its weight
that sounds
and
quite
credibility
good, actually,
as you give
Amber.
to the testimony of witnesses who testified
Ninette,
here.
that sounds actually quite
You
good.
must not discount any testimony merely because it was shown to you by video
I don't think we can
recording.
see it over here, though.
When one of the parties testifies unequivocally to the facts within his or her own knowledge, those statements of fact and the necessary inferences from them are binding upon him or her. He or she cannot rely on other evidence in conflict with his or her own testimony to strengthen his or her case. However,
Choose a
you must
color.
consider his or her testimony as a whole.
Choose a
and you
color,
must consider
everyone.
a
Choose a
statement made in
color.
one part
Any
of his or her
color.
testimony in the light of any explanation or clarification made elsewhere in his or her testimony. Any fact that may be proved by direct evidence may be proved by circumstantial evidence. That is, you may draw all reasonable and legitimate inferences and deductions from the evidence. If you believe from the case that a witness, other than Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard, previously made a statement inconsistent with his or her testimony at this trial, the only purpose for which that statement may be considered by you is its bearing on the witness's credibility. It is not evidence that what the witness previously said was true. If you believe from the evidence that Ms. Heard or Mr. Depp previously made a statement inconsistent with her or his testimony at this trial, that previous statement may be considered by you as evidence that what Ms. Heard or Mr. Depp previously said was true. In reaching your verdict in this case, you are to consider the testimony and evidence. Sometimes attorneys stated objections during the course of this trial.
I'll tell you what, we'll do red, white, and blue.
To answer a question.
Because it's Jubilee
Objections
weekend,
and
isn't it?
instructions to witnesses are not
Is it?
evidence,
Or is that
and you
next
may not
weekend?
consider them in
I'm
reaching your
confused.
verdict.
Hang on, I'm just putting the
Nor
light
are
on.
you to draw any inference from the fact that an objection was made. You must not consider any matter that was rejected or stricken by the court. It is not evidence and should be discarded. Any amount of damages requested by a party is not evidence in this case. You should not consider it as evidence in arriving at your verdict.
Oh, I did say this bit was going to be boring, didn't I?
Or misheard, then he or she is entitled to recover compensatory damages without any proof of actual or pecuniary injury. As a result, injury to Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard's personal and business reputation, humiliation, and embarrassment is presumed.
Yes.
If you find either party liable for defamation, then in determining the amount of damages
Good
to
point,
which
Major.
the
We'll do that
opposing
next
party is
Thursday
entitled,
then.
you may take into consideration all the circumstances surrounding the defamatory statements, the occasions on which they were made, and the extent of their publication, the nature and character of the insult, the probable effect on those who heard the statements, and their probable and natural effect upon the defamed party's personal feelings and upon his or her standing in the community and in business. Your verdict should be for the amount that will fully and fairly compensate him or her for, number one, any loss or injury to his or her business. Number two, any insult to him or her, including any pain, embarrassment, humiliation, or mental suffering. Number three, any injury to his or her reputation. And number four, any actual out-of-pocket losses that were caused by the statements. Mr. Depp cannot recover damages for any harm that occurred after November 2nd, 2020. Ms. Heard can recover damages for any harm that occurred after Mr. Waldman's statements were published. The burden is on the party seeking damages to prove by the greater weight of the evidence each item of damages he or she claims and to prove that each item was caused by the defamatory statements at issue. Neither party is required to prove the exact amount of damages, but the party must show sufficient facts and circumstances to permit you to make a reasonable estimate of each item. If either party fails to do so, then he or she cannot recover for that item. If you have found by clear and convincing evidence that the statements in the op-ed were made with knowledge that they were false or so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth, that is, with a high degree of awareness that the statements were probably false, then you may award punitive damages to punish Ms. Heard for such actions and to serve as an example to prevent others from making such statements in the future. You must state separately in your verdict any amount you allow as compensatory damages, if any, and the amount you allow as punitive damages. If you have found by clear and convincing evidence that Mr. Waldman,
Major,
while
this is
acting
going
as
to
an
be
agent for Mr. Depp, made the
this is going to be
statements
a
with
first
knowledge
hour
that they
because
were
they have
false
to go
or so
through all of this.
recklessly as to
There
amount
was
to a
like
willful disregard for the truth, that is, with a
over
high degree of
80,
awareness
I think, maybe
that the
getting up
statements
to
were probably
100
false,
jury
then you may
instructions that
award
they have
punitive
to read
damages to
out.
punish Mr. Depp for his such actions.
That's why I said this bit was going to be boring.
Such
It's
statements in the future.
not going to get interesting for about another
Any amount you allow as
at
compensatory
least quarter of
damages,
an hour
if any,
till
and the
closing
amount
arguments
you allow
start.
as punitive damages. All right, closing arguments.
Oh, now closing arguments now. Oh, that was quicker than I thought. That's Camille Vasquez. She's amazing.
There you go. You go. I think so. Okay. Nope, you had it for a second.
Good morning. Thank you. Let's try that again. Good morning. On May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into a courthouse in Los Angeles, California, to get a no-notice ex parte restraining order against Mr. Depp, and in doing so, ruined his life by falsely telling the world that she was a survivor of domestic abuse at the hands of Mr. Depp.
Yeah.
Today, on May 27th, 2022, exactly 6 years later, we ask you to give Mr. Depp his life back by telling the world that Mr. Depp is not the abuser Ms. Heard said he is, and hold Ms. Heard accountable for her lies. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you probably know by now, my name is Camille Vasquez. On behalf of Mr. Depp and all my colleagues at Brown Rednick, I want to thank you deeply for your time and your service over these last 7 weeks. We understand that it probably has not been convenient for you to be here every day, and we are so grateful for your time and careful consideration of the evidence as you deliberate. After weeks of sitting in this courtroom, listening to testimony and looking at evidence, now it's time for you, the jury, to come to a decision. You have been entrusted with a serious task. What is at stake in this trial is a man's good name. Even more than that, what is at stake at this trial is a man's life. The life that he lost when he was accused of a heinous crime, and the life he could live when he is finally vindicated. Exactly 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into court and filed a false report of domestic abuse against her husband of 15 months, Jonny Depp. The scene was a setup. She tipped off the paparazzi so they would be waiting. They knew exactly where she would pause, which side of her face to photograph. And the photos captured what she wanted them to see, the image of a battered woman. What the paparazzi did not know is that the dark mark on her face mysteriously appeared 6 days after last seeing Mr. Depp. It was a lie. She knew it, Mr. Depp knew it, and the multiple witnesses you heard from who saw her that week of May 21st, 2016 also knew it.
Wow,
but the world only saw what she wanted them to see.
Yep, that's the piece. Wow. That is the article.
Two years later, when promoting the biggest role of her career until this trial, Ms. Heard presented herself to the world as a public figure representing domestic abuse.
She's amazing.
The headline of the op-ed featured the term sexual violence, even though she had never before accused her ex-husband of such a heinous crime. Ms. Heard and her lawyers love to remind you of how the op-ed did not mention Mr. Depp by name, but Ms. Heard made sure that there would be no mistake about who she was referring to. She inserted 2 years ago, so the world would remember the photo of a battered woman, the mark on her face standing outside the courthouse, and they would once again see Mr. Depp as the villain, this time in full swing of the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
But what was happening behind closed doors was quite different from what Ms. Heard presented to the world. The exact opposite, in fact. There is an abuser in this courtroom, but it is not Mr. Depp. And there is a victim of domestic abuse in this courtroom, but it is not Ms. Heard.
Nicely
the
put.
evidence presented at this trial has shown that Ms. Heard is in fact the abuser and Mr. Depp the abused. As you heard from Mr. Depp and multiple other witnesses that testified under oath at this trial, Mr. Depp experienced persistent verbal, physical, and emotional abuse by Ms. Heard during their relationship. And when their relationship was over, Ms. Heard inflicted the greatest and cruelest injury of all. She publicly and falsely named Mr. Depp as the abuser. Ms. Heard never thought she would be held accountable, never thought that she would have to face her abuser. She never thought she would have her supposed mountain of evidence vetted. She never thought that Mr. Depp would tell you, the jury, and the world that he was the real victim of domestic abuse. She said it in her own words.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Jonny. Tell them, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and yes. I know it's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
Yeah, that's
it. At the start
it.
of this case, Mr. Chu and I stood before you to give you our opening statements on behalf of Mr. Depp. During that statement, we made promises to you about what the evidence would ultimately show at the end of this trial. We've kept those promises. One of those promises we made was that you would come to understand who Ms. Heard is, that she is a deeply troubled person, violently afraid of abandonment, desperate for attention and approval. And in her relationship with Mr. Depp, she was violent, she was abusive, and she was cruel. You heard from Dr. Shannon Curry, who explained that Ms. Heard suffers from borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. These are disorders that are characterized by anger, sometimes uncontrollable and explosive anger, and a powerful, sometimes desperate need for attention, acceptance, and approval. Fear of abandonment is the deepest fear. A person with these disorders will suffer from dramatically fluctuating moods and can sometimes be violent and aggressive. They can also be charming and likable.
Bipolar
incredibly
disorder,
manipulative and wild.
It depends on the extremity.
An emotional roller coaster with wild swings, from idolizing their partner to devaluing him. In fact, you saw that when she completed testing with her own forensic psychology expert, Dr. Dawn Hughes. Ms. Heard self-reported that she felt like she had 3 or 4 different personalities, and that sometimes her temper would explode and she'd completely lose control. You heard from multiple witnesses that Ms. Heard can be very pleasant, even charming. But you also heard from multiple witnesses and in audio recordings of Ms. Heard that she can be incredibly aggressive, violent, and cruel. You heard that even from her former assistant, Kate James. Ms. James testified that Ms. Heard would scream, yell, and send her barrages of text messages. In fact, Ms. Heard testified that Ms. James testified that Ms. Heard literally spat in her face. You heard from Ms. Heard's former best friend, Rocky Pennington, that Ms. Heard once hit her when Ms. Pennington did not do her best to meet Ms. Heard's needs. You also heard from Beverly Leonard that she once witnessed Ms. Heard assault her then partner in Seattle Airport in 2009. And you heard from Mr. Depp that Ms. Heard used her sister Whitney as a punching bag.
That witness was the
You also heard overwhelming evidence from Mr. Depp and the people that were around him and Ms. Heard during their relationship, that Mr. Depp suffered persistent verbal and physical abuse at the hands of Ms. Heard. You've heard evidence from Dr. Curry and the fact witnesses at this trial that Ms. Heard's deepest fear is one of abandonment, being left by Mr. Depp. Mr. Depp's greatest crime in her mind, the fault she confronts him with time and time again, is that he splits. He leaves the fight, especially when Ms. Heard gets physical, and she couldn't stand it when he did. You heard from Ms. Heard yourselves in audio recordings how upsetting it was to her when Mr. Depp would split.
Anytime anything goes wrong, you split. I feel like it's your first thing. And it's unnecessary. It's not always you're splitting because there's blows or because there's yelling or anything. You split most times when I'm still speaking in this
Look
volume.
at Johnny's eyes.
And nothing has been thrown or hit or
He's
anything.
reliving it.
You saw the barrage of text messages she would send when he would leave, calling him a monster for doing so.
He looked like he was reliving
witnesses like Travis McGivern, Tara Roberts, and Debbie Lloyd, that Ms. Heard would
every single thing he's doing, every tell, he's reliving the event.
Throw a punch when Mr. Depp tried to separate himself from the fight. And you heard from Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's couple therapist, Dr. Anderson, that Ms. Heard reported that when Mr. Depp would leave to de-escalate a fight, she would strike him to keep him there because she would rather be in a fight than have him leave. You heard from Mr. Depp about how often Ms. Heard would berate him, insult him, and physically attack him, including one of the most serious occasions when Ms. Heard threw a vodka bottle at Mr. Depp, severely injuring his finger, and then put a cigarette out on his face. You heard from Mr. Depp that this whole incident in Australia started because Ms. Heard was enraged that Mr. Depp wanted a post-nuptial agreement, and she wasn't in his will, just a month after getting married. When her husband was seriously injured and bleeding from a partially amputated finger, what did Ms. Heard do? She pursued him. She kept coming after him because that's what she does. She wouldn't stop.
It's not to get you mad. It's not to get you.
The bits where you can see that he's
Get out of a bad situation.
he reacts to the audio.
It gets worse. In Australia, when we had the big fight where I lost the tip of my finger, at least 5 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms I went to
avoid talking to me, to
To
avoid
escape
working it
the-
out. That's
to
the
escape
problem.
the fight.
You don't escape the fight. You escape the solution.
No.
You escape the solution.
No.
You escape figuring it out. We cannot work it out if you run away to the bathroom every time.
You heard Mr. Depp testify. He went through something like a nervous breakdown that day, and he wrote a lot of things on mirrors and other places. Again, what did Ms. Heard do as her husband was bleeding from serious injury? She wrote snarky messages right back to him. She denied it under oath to you, but the evidence you saw speaks for itself. You heard from Mr. Depp's security, Sean Bett, who was aware of constant arguing and bickering. He witnessed Ms. Heard calling Mr. Depp names, fat ass, fuck you, Jonny. Mr. Bett testified that he saw and documented injuries on Mr. Depp, a swollen eyelid in March of 2015, cuts on his nose, scratch marks on his chin in December of 2015. And you heard from Travis McGivern, who testified that Ms. Heard called Mr. Depp names like washed up, fucking cunt, and worst of all, a fucking deadbeat dad. Ms. Heard would take the low blows and hit him where it hurts, his children.
Yeah.
Mr. McGivern told you that on March 23rd, 2015, Ms. Heard threw things at Mr. Depp, spat at him, and ultimately punched him in the face, leaving him with a shiner. You heard testimony from Malcolm Connolly, another security member, who testified he saw Ms. Heard throw things at Mr. Depp, a cigarette,
Look at his face.
soda can from upstairs at the Eastern Columbia building. He never saw marks on Ms. Heard, but he saw marks on Mr. Depp, scratches, bruises on his left eye, scratches on his left ear. And he took pictures documenting injuries like this one. You also heard from Tara Roberts, a manager at Mr. Depp's Island, who witnessed Ms. Heard telling Mr. Depp that he was washed up and would die fat and lonely. You also heard from Ms. Roberts that she witnessed Ms. Heard clawing and grabbing at Mr. Depp, grabbing his hair, trying to pull him back to her. And Mr. Depp had a visible injury to his nose on that occasion. Most importantly, you heard from Ms. Heard yourselves on multiple audio recordings, admitting to being physically violent with Mr. Depp. You heard Ms. Heard admit to hitting Mr. Depp.
And then you fucking clocked me.
I remember hitting you as a response to the door thing. And I'm really sorry about hitting you with the door or hitting your head. I did not mean to, nor
You didn't mean to hit me in the head with the door, but you meant to
I did mean
punch me in the jaw.
I meant to hit you, and I did not do this thing with the door. I do remember I did mean to hit you.
So that you didn't mean.
The door? No, God, no, I didn't.
But punch me.
Hi, Tammy.
I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry. I hit you. I did mean to hit you, but it was in response. I just reacted in response to my foot. I just reacted.
You heard her admit it again and claim Mr. Depp was a baby for complaining about the abuse.
And I watched you lie, and then
I didn't punch you, by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. I was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, even a lot of fights have been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you fucking have a close
You
face.
didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you tough?
What am I supposed to do? Do this? I'm not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
Because you started.
You are such a baby. Grow the fuck up,
Did you start
Johnny.
physical fights?
I did start a physical
Yeah,
fight.
you did. So I had
Because-
to get the fuck out of there.
Yes, you did. So you did the right thing, the big thing. You know what? You are admirable.
Take a minute to really think about what you just heard there. Quote, I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. I was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched. Imagine that was Mr. Depp saying that to Miss Heard on that recording.
Exactly.
Let's play one more.
That fake laugh. That fake laugh is too much to take.
No, I'm sure she's.
That fake laugh is so disgusting.
She's great. I'm sure she's great.
I'm thinking that you can give me some of
No.
the best performances in
No,
the
no, you're right. I don't. It's all about performance.
I'm right. I don't regret. I don't regret.
Oh, what else?
I
What
don't.
else that you do? Oh, come on.
I don't
Be
regret.
Come
I don't
on.
regret.
Lay it on me. What else? What else other things you want to add?
Can't talk to
You
you when you
fucking
sound
lying
like
piece of
Bobby
shit.
Bear.
What? Oh,
Dirty
no, I
kid
want
show.
to know. I want
Get out of your Uber's out.
kind of waiting. Go get it.
Yeah, I'll be in.
Wait, is there no other place for you to run in your 15 other houses to go run? Come on, go be a real married man. Go deal with your shit the way that a man does. Go run to the next house. Every man does.
Yeah.
Go. Run away.
This is the real Miss Heard, the one in the audio recordings, not the one you saw in this courtroom. What you didn't hear on a single recording you heard in this case, and there were many played by both parties, is Mr. Depp ever admitting to hitting, punching, or kicking Miss Heard. You didn't hear it.
Oh, she's
It
got her
doesn't
glasses
exist.
on now, look.
It didn't happen. And despite the fact that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard are heard discussing many of the alleged incidents you've heard about at this trial, like Australia and the Bahamas, you never heard Ms. Heard accuse Mr. Depp of sexual assault. Unlike Mr. Depp, who you heard admit to and own up to his past mistakes and his struggles, particularly with drugs and alcohol, Ms.
Yeah.
Heard will not admit that she has ever done anything wrong. But she cannot deny what you heard on those recordings. As much as Ms. Heard and her lawyers have tried to make this case about Mr. Depp's language, it is Ms. Heard that repeatedly admits to violence. By April and May of 2016, Mr. Depp had reached his limit. His mother was dying. His finances were a mess. And when he showed up late to Ms. Heard's 30th birthday party because a meeting with his new business manager, Edward White, had gone late, Ms. Heard, of course, was not understanding. She was furious. You heard from Mr. Depp, both in this courtroom and on audio recordings, that Ms. Heard punched him that evening. He left with Travis McGivern, and the next morning he learned that someone had left feces on his bed. Ms. Heard denies responsibility, but she admitted to the prank to Starling Jenkins. You heard him testify to that effect. For almost a month after that, they didn't see each other. And you heard from Mr. Depp that when his mother died on May 20th, 2016, he resolved to leave Ms. Heard. He was done. And when Ms. Heard learned that Mr. Depp was done, that she was really losing him, she went on the attack.
Yeah.
She filed for divorce before Mr. Depp could. Then, as you heard from Mr. Depp's divorce lawyer, Laura Wasser, Ms. Heard sent a letter demanding financial support. And when her demands weren't met, Ms. Heard struck a blow against Mr. Depp that was more damaging than any physical blow she had ever landed. When she walked into court 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, to get a domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, she did so in front of paparazzi with a mark on her face. The evidence presented at this trial demonstrates that Ms. Heard didn't just want a divorce. She wanted to ruin him. Ms. Heard denied alerting TMZ to the TRO filing in this courtroom. But you heard testimony from Morgan Tremaine that TMZ knew to go to the courthouse, knew what side of her face the alleged bruise was on,
Yep.
and that
Yep,
Ms. Heard would
absolutely.
pause.
I know, right? I've been
The
glued.
paparazzi who
They
got
have
the
to.
photos that ended up splashed across newspapers and magazines.
Yeah.
Ms. Heard testified that she did not personally give photographs of her apparent injuries to People magazine. But somehow, these pictures that she took and maintained on her devices ended up on the cover of People magazine 1 month later. In the end, she walked away with $7 million without any tax liabilities, which she said
Yep.
she was donating to 2 charities, the ACLU and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. The ACLU, they got less than $1 million from her. And the Children's Hospital, they got $250,000. But that didn't stop Ms. Heard from telling the world that she donated everything, because remember, she wanted nothing. And she had donated everything. The word donated. And that didn't stop her from testifying under the penalty of perjury that she had donated it. Ms. Heard tried to tell you that pledge and donate mean the same thing. She claims she hasn't given the money because she was sued, but you've heard uncontested evidence that she had the money for 13 months prior to this lawsuit being commenced by Mr. Depp. She had all the money and had month after month after month to fulfill her pledge and actually donate the money. But she didn't. She also told you that she never fulfilled the pledge because Mr. Depp sued her for defamation. That's a blatant lie. After the divorce was finalized, when she sought to initiate an arbitration against Mr. Depp for defamation 3 months before the op-ed was even published, and 6 months before Mr. Depp filed this lawsuit. Not only does this contradict Ms. Heard's excuse for not making donations, it contradicts her narrative that she just wants to move on with her life, that she just wants Mr. Depp to leave her alone. Lies. That is Ms. Heard's narrative. Lies upon lies.
Yeah.
There allegedly were all kinds of accusations flying your way when you said all this, and then there was a divorce settlement. You got $7 million. People were saying this is all about the money, but then you did something that twisted that whole argument. What did you do with that money?
$7 million in total was donated to, I split it between the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
ACLU is a human rights organization.
Sorry, ACLU is a prominent organization, nonprofit organization.
Heard in a lie. She tries to cover it up with more lies.
Oh, it jumped.
So let's talk about the giant lie at the heart of this case.
But yeah, she didn't donate the money.
Claim that Mr. Depp is an abusive monster and that she is a public figure representing domestic abuse. At the start of this case,
she's representing
I told you
domestic
that you were going to
abusers.
hear some disturbing and graphic tales of abuse from Ms. Heard, and they were designed to shock you and overwhelm you. which you have. We told you that this would be a performance, the role of
And it
her
was.
lifetime,
Not a
as a
good one.
heroic survivor of brutal abuse. When Mr. Depp brought this case for defamation, Ms. Heard went all in. She spun a story of shocking, overwhelming, brutal abuse. She came into this courtroom prepared to give the performance of her life, and she gave it. Ms. Heard's acting coach, Christina Sexton, testified that Ms. Heard has difficulty crying when she is acting. You saw it. Ms. Heard sobbing without tears, while spinning elaborate, exaggerated, fantastical accounts of abuse and everything going on in her mind almost a decade prior while enduring that abuse. It was a performance. She told you that what she thinks about, she told you what she thinks you need to hear to convict this man as a domestic abuser and a rapist. She wants you to believe that she was abused countless times.
Coming in hot.
Countless times over the entire course of their relationship. But as Mr. Chu and I promised you, the evidence just does not bear that out. Ms. Heard has told you that she has mountains of evidence of abuse, but there are no medical records reflecting she sustained any injuries from the abuse she claims. Ms. Heard had medical professionals at her disposal. Dr. Kipper, Debbie Lloyd, her own nurse, Erin Filati, and yet there's nothing.
And she said all of them have lied.
Ms. Heard took pictures all the time. Pictures of Mr. Depp sleeping. Pictures of cocaine. Pictures of property damage. Pictures of herself. And as an actress, she was photographed all the time. Where are the pictures of the horrific injuries Ms. Heard describes? Ms. Heard also took audio recordings and videos frequently. Where are the videos of Mr. Depp attacking her? Where are the audio recordings of Mr. Depp admitting to or apologizing for physical abuse? There are none. What Ms. Heard has, and what you've seen multiple times, is a video of Mr. Depp banging some cabinets around in a kitchen. A video that, based on the testimony you heard from Morgan Tremaine, the former TMZ employee, Ms. Heard seems to have sold to TMZ right before she was deposed in connection with her divorce from Mr. Depp. Sure, Ms. Heard can point to text messages where Mr. Depp is apologizing to her, but never for violence. Ms. Heard's counsel showed you Defendant's Exhibit 325, where Mr. Depp says sorry for, quote, my behavior. I'm a fucking savage. But this is not an apology for violence. It's an apology for the, quote, these heinous, slinging insults. Mr. Depp is apologizing for the words he used. Unlike Ms. Heard, who you heard apologizing for physical violence in multiple audio recordings, you have never heard that from Mr. Depp.
No.
Because he never used physical violence against Ms. Heard.
He was rude, but not violent.
Ms. Heard told you that Mr. Depp started abusing her right from the very beginning of her relationship, starting at the beginning of 2012. But she has repeatedly testified under oath differently to having spent a year of bliss with Mr. Depp before he ever laid a hand on her. And now, in this courtroom, she has suddenly erased an entire year of magic. She wants you to believe that instead of hitting her after a year of magic, Mr. Depp was hitting her immediately. The good times she has testified to about repeatedly in the past apparently never happened. And with the good times erased, Ms. Heard wants you to believe that she gave Mr. Depp a big knife that said, hasta la muerte, until death, to the man who supposedly would get drunk and high and beat her.
That doesn't make sense. She gave him a great big
Ms. Heard admitted to
proper
you during this
hunting
trial
knife.
that Mr. Depp
Like
always
this
wears
big
big,
knife.
chunky rings on every finger.
Doesn't make sense.
According to her, he was wearing these rings when he'd slap her, hit her, punch her in the face. But you have not seen a single photograph that reflects the serious injuries Ms. Heard would have sustained if this was true.
Should have been battered. Absolutely battered. Look at his
Ms. Heard
ring.
testified to an incident in March 2013 when Mr. Depp supposedly hit her multiple times in the face.
Look at
while
his
wearing
ring.
rings. And this
She
is
would
what her
be
face looked like
battered.
afterwards.
That's when he's supposed to have hit her in the face with those rings on multiple times. Bullshit.
Ms. Heard testified
I know,
to an
right,
incident in
Amanda?
Russia,
It is very
where she
poor.
claims Mr. Depp whacked her in the face and gave her a bloody nose. She didn't take pictures of her bloody nose, but her photograph was taken on that trip, and this is what she looked like.
Yeah, that's her smashed in nose. You can see it. Look how broken it is. It's completely smashed. Well, I'm not being funny, Major. Even my rings, even my topaz ring, if I
Ms. Heard
catch
told you that
myself
there was
on
an
it,
incident
it
the night of the
scratches.
Met Gala in
Occasionally,
May
like it's me
2014,
and Rufus, if
when
I've
Mr.
turned
Depp
over in
supposedly
bed,
whacked Ms. Heard
if
in the
I've caught
face,
him with the ring,
leaving her
it
with a
can
red,
scratch a little bit.
scoured, and
Or like,
swollen
just on
nose
like the
that she
mountain
felt
bit, let alone those
was
rings.
broken. Ms. Heard didn't show you any photographs of these alleged injuries, but photographs were taken of her the following night, and there were no visible injuries to Ms. Heard's face.
No, none. Where's all these injuries? I'm good with makeup, but I can't do things like that. I can't cover up. If you've got bruises and swelling and
Ms.
all
Heard
of that,
testified
makeup
that
doesn't
in
cover that up.
January 2015, while she and Mr. Depp were in Tokyo, Mr. Depp knelt on her back so aggressively that she was concerned that bruises would be visible in her backless dress. Here's Ms. Heard in that backless dress. Ms. Heard testified that after an incident in December 2015, she had two black eyes, a broken nose, and chunks of hair missing. The assault was allegedly so violent that there was blood left all over the pillows, and Mr. Depp had broken the bed frame. Pictures were taken of that bed frame.
Yeah, look at the broken bed.
And in that picture, there appears to be a pocket knife on the bed. And that picture fails to capture the bloody pillows. And here is what Ms. Heard looked like on the James Corden show the next day.
Hang on, I'll make these bigger. Oh yeah, look, you
Indeed,
can see
you heard
she's
from Ms. Heard's
bruised,
own
battered.
nurse, Erin Filati, that she saw her a day or two afterwards and could not visualize the injuries Ms. Heard described. Ms. Heard did take pictures of herself after this alleged incident. But are the injuries reflected in these photographs consistent? That's the question. Are they consistent with the brutal assault and serious injuries Ms. Heard has testified to? Or are these injuries more consistent with Mr. Depp's testimony that he and Ms. Heard bumped heads while he was trying to restrain Ms. Heard to keep her from attacking him? Out of Australia, where Mr. Depp sustained the most serious injury from his relationship with Ms. Heard spun a story of horror. A 3-day ordeal with a drug-fueled Mr. Depp violently assaulting her, cutting his own finger off, dragging her through glass, and then bending her back over a counter and raping her with a whiskey bottle.
Yeah, trigger warning.
She claimed that she had bruises on her face, cuts all over her arms and feet, and was bleeding from her vagina from the sexual assault.
Again, helplines are below. Please take those
And
numbers
what
if
did
you
Ms.
need
Heard
them.
say she did? She went upstairs, took some sleeping pills, and went to sleep. The next morning, she took pictures of the mirrors her husband had written on in paint using his amputated finger. She took no pictures of herself, her alleged injuries, or the property damage she testified to in this courtroom. When Malcolm Connolly, Jerry Judge, Dr. Kipper, and Nurse Debbie Lloyd arrived to extract Mr. Depp and get him medical treatment for his finger injury, you heard from Mr. Connolly, Dr. Kipper, and Ms. Lloyd. All of them testified they did not observe any injuries to Ms. Heard. And no
Exactly,
one, including
Nanette.
Ms. Heard, testified that she sought
So
medical
many of
treatment.
us have been in those situations.
We also
We
heard
know
from Ben
what it
King.
looks like. Oh,
He also saw Ms. Heard right after this alleged incident. He flew home with her to Los Angeles.
hi,
He
Ness. I
testified
hope
that
you're
Ms. Heard
well.
didn't want to leave, that she said, I can't leave. It will be the end if I leave. He also testified that once they did leave for Los Angeles, Ms. Heard asked him if he ever got so mad he just lost it. When Ms. Heard arrived in Los Angeles, she saw Travis McGivern, who also testified he observed no injuries, and her personal nurse, Erin Filati, who documented no requests for medical treatment and no injuries in her nursing notes for Ms. Heard.
No.
You heard from Mr. Depp's sister, Christy, that she also saw Ms. Heard when she arrived back to Los Angeles and observed no injuries on Ms. Heard.
No.
Christy testified that when she told Ms. Heard her fighting with Mr. Depp was unsustainable, Ms. Heard responded that Christy should get off her cross, that Mr. Depp liked her feisty.
Wow.
Ms. Heard's testimony about what occurred in Australia just doesn't add up. That's because there was a monster in that house in Australia, but it wasn't Mr. Depp. It was Ms. Heard. Other than Ms. Heard's testimony, all the evidence you've seen in this trial shows that it was Ms. Heard who attacked and grievously wounded Mr. Depp when she threw a vodka bottle at him, severing his finger.
Yeah.
Mr. Depp told Dr. Kipper that when Dr. Kipper arrived to treat Mr. Depp's finger, you've seen the pictures of the bar area in Australia with the broken vodka bottles on the ground and trails of blood drops on the floor and a bloody tissue on the floor. You've heard from Ben King that the tip of Mr. Depp's finger was found in the same bar area.
Yes, it was.
And you heard from Dr. Gilbert that the injury to Mr. Depp's finger could have been caused exactly as he described.
Yeah.
And interestingly, you heard from Christina Sexton that Ms. Heard told her that Mr. Depp injured his finger while swinging a bottle around, not smashing a phone, as Ms. Heard surmised in this courtroom, but swinging a bottle around. You also heard from Ms. Sexton that Ms. Heard first told her about the bottle rape in Australia while Ms. Sexton was at Ms. Heard's home, meeting with her lawyers the day before Ms. Sexton was scheduled to be deposed in this case. The evidence presented at this trial shows that this is not the only time that Ms. Heard disclosed a sexual assault at a convenient time for purposes of litigation she's involved in.
Trigger
The
warning.
first time Ms. Heard claimed that Mr. Depp sexually assaulted her in the Bahamas in December 2015 was after Tara Roberts, the manager of Mr. Depp's island, submitted a sworn statement in the UK action describing the incident she testified to in this courtroom, where Ms. Heard chased Mr. Depp out of the house, was yelling and then pleading with Mr. Depp to stay while clawing at his hair and clothes, and left Mr. Depp with an injury to his face. That's the first time she disclosed it, after there was contrary evidence. Ms. Heard testified about another incident just 2 weeks after the events in Australia, where Mr. Depp supposedly attacked Ms. Heard and almost pushed her sister Whitney down the stairs.
Yeah.
Whitney is the only witness that you heard from that backs up Ms. Heard's version of events.
I know, right? I've got to do the same,
The only
Ness. I've
witness
got to do
other than
editing as
Ms.
well.
Heard claims to have seen Mr. Depp physically attack
And
Ms. Heard.
filming.
But just like Ms. Heard's version of the events in Australia, her testimony about the staircase incident and that of her sister Whitney's just doesn't square up with the other evidence in this trial. Their testimony is contradicted by the testimony of Travis McGivern and Debbie Lloyd, who were there that night. Ms. Heard and Whitney testified that Mr. Depp threw a Red Bull can that hit or almost hit Ms. Lloyd.
Goodbye.
Ms. Lloyd testified that never happened. Mr. McGivern testified that it was Ms. Heard who threw a can at Mr. Depp. Ms. Heard testified that Whitney was between her and Mr. Depp when she punched him. Mr. McGivern testified that he was the one between Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp when Ms. Heard punched Mr. Depp. Ms. Heard testified that Mr. Depp was able to get his hands in her hair, yank her, and then hit her in the face with the cast he had on. But you heard from Ms. Lloyd and Dr. Colbert, Mr. Depp's medical doctor, who treated Mr. Depp's finger injury, that Mr. Depp's finger was in a delicate state. He had a pin in his finger, a skin graft, and a soft cast that immobilized Mr. Depp's two middle fingers. And tellingly, the only picture of an injury from this incident is of Mr. Depp with a shiner. And then we have May 21st, 2016. Ms. Heard testified that Mr. Depp threw a phone at her face, causing a visible injury.
I know, right?
Ms. Heard has shown you pictures she claims to show this injury.
Thank you, Tammy.
But these photographs are not to be trusted. You heard from Mr. Newmeister that, like many of the photographs Ms. Heard has presented in this case,
Yes.
these photos were stored in a photo editing application. And these photos show signs of manipulation.
It's the same photo.
These two photographs were taken at the exact same time and have the exact same file name, but they are visually different. One shows significantly more redness on Ms. Heard's face than the other, which doesn't show any injury at all. Ms.
I
Heard
think
testified
Tammy's on
the
the
difference
witchy chat.
is explained by turning on a light. But there is no way Ms. Heard could have taken a picture, turned on a light, and then taken another picture with every hair in the exact same place within the same second. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Moreover, you heard from multiple witnesses, including Officer Melissa Sines, Officer Tyler Haddon, and Officer William Gatlin, Isaac Baruch, Alejandro Romero, who saw Ms. Heard on or after May 21st and saw no injuries to her face before she showed up to that courthouse with a mark on May 27th.
Come here, boobs.
And the very next day, after Ms. Heard walked into court with what appeared to be a bruise on her face to obtain a domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard was photographed laughing with her best friend, fresh-faced, with no bruise on her face.
You see it here, look. Look at you there, look. Yeah, sorry, these are the photos. No bruises.
The
That was
mountain of
after
evidence
she had
that Mr. Depp
PRO.
of Ms. Heard is simply not there. What we have is a mountain of unproven allegations that are wild, over the top, and implausible. And you can't pick and choose which of these wild allegations to believe and which ones to disregard.
No.
You either believe all of it or none of it. Either Mr. Depp sexually assaulted Ms. Heard with a bottle in Australia, or Ms. Heard got up on that stand in front of all of you and made up that horrific tale of abuse.
Come on then.
Either she's a victim of truly horrific abuse, or she is a woman who is willing to say absolutely anything. It is disturbing to think that Ms. Heard would make up the horrific tales of abuse that she testified to in this courtroom. But this case doesn't come down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp. This case comes down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp, Christy Dombrowski, Sean Bett, Elton Connolly, Travis McGivern, Starling Jenkins, Keenan Wyatt, Dr. Kipper, nurses Debbie Lloyd and Aaron Filati, Tara Roberts, Ben King, Kate James, Kate Moss, Dr. Colbert, Morgan Knight, Morgan Tremaine, Officers Melissa Sines, Officers Tyler Haddon, Officer William Gatlin, and Beverly Leonard. What Ms. Heard testified to in this courtroom is the story of far too many women. But the overwhelming evidence, weight of that evidence, shows that it's not her story. It's not Ms. Heard's story. It was an act of profound cruelty, not just to Mr. Depp, but to true survivors of domestic abuse. For Ms. Heard to hold herself out as a public figure representing domestic abuse. It was false, it was defamatory, and it caused irreparable harm.
Absolutely.
I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and my friend, Mr. Chu.
Well done, Camille. That was awesome. Well done, Camille. That was a very, very good. You can tell she was a bit nervous. There was a couple of bits. Oh, I've just realized I'm all the way down there. There you go. You can tell she was a bit nervous. You can tell there was some moments where she was a little bit stumbly over her words. But overall, that was a really, really good closing argument. Going over the facts of the case, being very methodical, playing the audio clips, showing the bits that she needed, going over it bit by bit by bit. And one thing is the cameras kept cutting back to Amber Heard and her team, where she is smirking, she is laughing all the way through. Now, if she is a victim and they're talking about what happened to her, she wouldn't be doing that. It just doesn't ring true.
Our strong suit.
And this is now the head lawyer of Johnny Depp's
to all of you, truly, for taking so much time over these last several weeks to listen to Mr. Depp, to his friends, to his family, and to so many others who have come forward physically in this courtroom, some from a very long distance, to tell you the truth. And to finally, after so many years...
your messages have come up for me. They really did. I'm on both channels, so I'm streaming on both channels simultaneously. So your messages are coming up. I've been responding to them. I have.
We also told you at the start of this trial that you were going to come to know the real Johnny Depp, not the many characters you've seen him play so wonderful in the movies, but the man himself. We kept that promise. You've met the real Johnny Depp. You have heard that Mr. Depp came from humble, very difficult beginnings. You have heard from Mr. Depp's big sister, who's here in the courtroom today, Christy Dombrowski, who told you how Mr. Depp grew up in a deeply troubled household with a mother, Betty Sue, who was physically abusive and mentally cruel.
Oh, maybe I didn't see it there, Tammy. Sorry, love.
One of the names that Betty Sue called Mr. Depp when he was a little boy was One Eye, because he had to wear an eye patch for some time. His mother used to hit his father and the kids, including young Mr. Depp. And when his mother got violent, Mr. Depp would retreat and find a place to hide. Sometimes he and his sister Christy would find a place to hide together. Mr. Depp never hit back. And like his father, he either stood up and took the violence or he retreated from it.
That's awful, Tammy. That is really, really awful.
When he found himself in a relationship with another person who returned his love with abuse, with physical.
As long as the plank's that
and
size.
despite this long, unhappy history with his mother, Johnny never turned his back on her.
No, I did.
In her elder years, Mr. Depp moved his mother to California, and he moved her to Los Angeles right across the street from his house, so his two children could get to know her. He hired nurses for his mother. He made sure to take care of her and to make her comfortable. She never went to hospice. She had the nurses make her comfortable to the day she died. And from those humble and difficult beginnings, Mr. Depp grew into one of the greatest actors and movie stars of his generation. Now, he came to Los Angeles with his first love as a young man, planning to be a musician. Music had been a part of his life ever since he found peace himself in his room as a young boy when he was escaping. and he learned to play the guitar and would use it as solace. But it was an actor as his star began its rise, as he appeared in films too many to mention, including, of
Nightmare
course,
on Elm Street.
his role as Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Fame came with challenges to Mr. Depp and his family. It was a strange experience for a shy young man from Kentucky to be thrust into the limelight, pursued by paparazzi, and to have even his very name become a brand. But he did his best to live a private, quiet life, and despite it all, and over the years built a reputation as a respected artist and as a decent, very well-liked man, which you've heard from many people. Mr. Depp dated major figures like Winona Ryder, Kate Moss, and Vanessa Paradis, with whom he spent 14 years together and with whom they had their children. Before Amber Heard, ladies and gentlemen, no woman ever before Amber Heard ever claimed that Mr. Depp raised a hand to her.
Does anybody know who this woman is on the left-hand side? Who are we
And
looking
no
at and
other
why?
woman since Ms. Heard made that false claim back on May 27th, 2016, and repeated it in her December 2018 op-ed. Has any woman come forward since?
No,
This is
nobody.
Me Too without any Me Too. To the contrary, ladies and gentlemen, you heard Kate Moss 2 days ago testify. This is a woman who has never testified in any proceeding ever.
She can't serve time in prison, Patricia, because this is a civil
Mr. Depp
case.
never
No
abused,
case pending.
and that Ms. Heard lied to you. And she lied to you twice.
Get charged
When she
for
told you-
Objection, Your Honor. That, Miss, sure.
she can get charged for perjury later on. So they're objecting to something in the closing statements, which they are able to do about. Oh, he doesn't like, Rottenborn doesn't like something that Ben Chu just said about her lying twice, does he?
Ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying, Ms. Heard lied to you twice when she suggested to you that Mr. Depp pushed Kate Moss down the stairs. You told her, you heard her say just 2 days ago that Mr. Depp never did that, and he never hit her, and he never kicked her. That was one of...
Objection, Your Honor. That's not what you testified
It's
to.
exactly
We
what
just
you
discussed that.
testified.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. They're still at it.
Oh, it's Johnny Depp's sister.
Ms. Heard
Thank
and
you.
her lawyers have spent much of this trial talking about drugs and alcohol. Mr. Depp is no saint, and he has never claimed to be one. He has made mistakes in his life, as we all have. Yes, he has struggled with drugs and alcohol, but you never heard him deny that. We told you that in the opening statement. He owns his flaws. He admits to them. He told you all about them. But he is not a violent abuser. He's not an abuser, as Ms. Heard claims. And he did not and does not deserve to have his life, his legacy, destroyed by a vicious lie. And this is, as Ms. Vasquez said, this is the 6th anniversary of that. There is a world of difference between having substance abuse problems and being a physical abuser. Ms. Heard falsely accused Mr. Depp of beating her. That was her first allegation, and you know why, and you know that wasn't true. Then, years after the fact, for the first time, she accused him of raping her. The lies have grown and metastasized over time, and they need to be stopped. And those false accusations have caused more harm to Mr. Depp than her fists ever did.
Interesting.
And make no mistake, Ms. Heard has admitted, unlike Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard has admitted on the audio tapes you've heard at this trial, and Ms. Vasquez just played you a few of them. she has admitted repeatedly to physically abusing Mr. Depp. And I would just like to take a minute to talk about the harm to Mr. Depp and his family.
I got this from the internet, from eBay, I think I got it.
In Mr. Depp's life about the damage Ms. Heard's lies have done to him. You heard from his sister, Christy, who told you how hard it has been on his family and on her little brother personally. You heard from Mr. Depp's friend of 4 decades, and that speaks volumes about Mr. Depp. He has lifetime friends who appear for him. Mr. Baruch told you how Mr. Depp and his family had been, quote, completely wrecked, unquote, by Ms. Heard's lies. You heard Mr. Depp testify that he has lost nothing less than everything because of Ms. Heard's lies. Nothing less than everything.
Yeah.
You heard about Mr. Depp's children, Jack and Lily Rose. His children have had to hear these allegations since 2016. And then when that started to die down, they had to hear them again. This time in December 2018, this time in the Washington Post, which is a national and international publication. And Mr. Depp has had to live with the knowledge that his children will keep hearing those false rumors and statements against him. Mr. Depp has millions of fans, people who grew up watching him on 21 Jump Street, which is something you heard Ms. Heard mock on one of the tapes that was played to you. Or they grew up watching him play the swashbuckling pirate Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, or Willy Wonka. Mr. Depp means something to those people, and those people mean a lot to Mr. Depp. He's a fond memory from childhood or adolescence or adulthood. And to tarnish him as an abuser is to destroy him in the eyes of many of these people who will never look at him the same way again. And because of what Ms. Heard did, and because of what she said, Mr. Depp will go to his grave knowing no matter what he does, no matter the outcome of this trial, there are people who used to look up to him who now believe that he beat a woman, which is the worst thing you can say about a man. Beyond the personal and emotional effects of Ms. Heard's lies, their impact on Mr. Depp and his family, the damage she inflicted on his reputation and career is undeniable.
Yep.
There's an old saying that a good reputation takes a lifetime to build, but only a second to destroy. Mr. Depp spent, in fact, a lifetime building his reputation as one of the greatest actors and movie stars of his generation, an iconic figure respected and liked throughout Hollywood and recognized and admired throughout the world. You heard evidence from Jack Wiggin, who was here today, Mr. Depp's agent, who explained that Mr. Depp, quote, was very well regarded and respected by peers in the artistic community, unquote. And you heard further testimony from Mr. Wiggum that Mr. Depp had a deal with Disney to play Captain Jack Sparrow in the 6th movie sequel of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise for $22.5 million. But as Mr. Wiggum explained, all of that changed when Ms. Heard published her op-ed in December of 2018 in the Washington Post. Quoting the testimony you heard by Mr. Wiggum, quote, after the op-ed, it was impossible to get him a studio film, which is what we
wants to work
normally
with
would
somebody who is accused of being all of that? You can't put somebody like that as a headline star, can you?
The impact of this op-ed, as opposed to the other stories that you saw, the other publications. Mr. Wiggum.
Okay, Ninette, take care, my darling. Look after yourself. We'll see you very soon.
Account. I mean, from the victim. It's extremely impactful. You know, with respect to Jonny, it was catastrophic because it was coming from a first-person account. It was not from a journalist. It was coming from someone observing. It was from someone saying, this happened to me, unquote. You also heard from Richard Marks, an expert in the inner workings of Hollywood and the entertainment industry, who explained that the impact of Ms. Heard's allocations on Mr. Depp was devastating. Quote,
oh, Mister.
type of claim, the Me Too claim of sexual violence, domestic abuse that has canceled a list of actors,
It's
unquote.
not our Mr. Mister.
And
It's
for
next
many,
door, Mr. Mister.
Mr. Depp would agree with this, rightfully so. Me Too is an important movement, a movement that Mr. Depp supports and believes
Okay,
in.
Tammy, my darling, you take care.
True survivors of abuse, not Ms. Heard. True victims need protection, and true perpetrators need to face the repercussions. But as you heard in this case, Amber Heard is not a true victim, and Mr. Depp certainly is not an abuser.
No.
Again, nobody has come out of the woodwork to say Me Too. This is the unique and singular Me Too case where there's not a single Me Too. In fact, to the contrary, Kate Moss, who was in a romantic relationship with Mr. Depp for 3 years, which he broke off, came forward to say, no, he never pushed her down any stairs. And you heard Doug Banya, an expert in internet and social media analytics, testify to the impact that Ms. Heard's allegations had on Mr. Depp's popularity.
Absolutely destroyed him.
Ms. Heard's lawyers
Absolutely
tried to tell
destroyed
you
him.
that all of the damage done to Mr. Depp's career was because of his own behavior, because he was sometimes unprofessional or sometimes late to set. But that doesn't hold up. Mr. Depp has been a major figure in Hollywood for decades. Yes, Mr. Depp was late to set sometimes. But as Richard Marx testified, quote, when you hire Johnny Depp, you get all of Johnny Depp, which includes being late, unquote.
When you hire Johnny Depp, you get Johnny Depp.
He worked for decades as a sound engineer on some of Mr. Depp's films, said much the same thing. And by the way, Mr. Wyatt is not and never has been an employee of Mr. Depp. He's just worked with him on movies. Mr. Depp wasn't canceled by Hollywood because he was sometimes late to set. He was canceled because Ms. Heard falsely accused him of domestic violence and sexual violence on the pages of the Washington Post on December 18, 2018, repeating the prior lies of May 17, 2016. And as you saw at trial, Ms. Heard published the op-ed on December 18, 2018, 2 years after her public allegations of domestic abuse. Ms. Heard's publication of the op-ed coincided with the release of her major movie Aquaman that December. And it coincided as well with her announcement on Twitter that she was becoming an ACLU ambassador for women's rights. And in that op-ed, Ms. Heard repeated her false allegations against Mr. Depp.
Yeah.
Now, she didn't mention his name. She didn't have to. Everyone knew exactly who and what Ms. Heard was talking about. Ms. Heard got on the stand and tried to tell you that the op-ed was not about Mr. Depp. She then said, well, it wasn't just about Mr. Depp. But she couldn't deny, and this was yesterday, that this was at least partly about Mr. Depp. The op-ed obviously is about Mr. Depp, and the testimony at trial proves that. You will recall testimony from the ACLU's representative, an attorney, stating that Mr. Depp's name was included in drafts of the op-ed.
And it was taken out by her attorney.
That the op-ed was about Mr. Depp.
Yeah.
Specifically, the ACLU representative testified, among other things, quote, based on my review of prior drafts of the op-ed, I knew that she was referring to Johnny Depp and the marriage, unquote.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obvious.
Ms. Heard's claim that the op-ed is not about Mr. Depp
is ridiculous.
just another one of her many, many lies. In fact, what you have seen time and again through the course of this trial is that Ms. Heard lies. She lies all the time about things that are important and the things that aren't important. She just can't seem to stop. And as Ms. Vasquez said, what she routinely does is she doesn't take ownership or responsibility for anything. And she has an excuse for everything. But in this courtroom, confronted with the evidence, she can't run away from her own words.
No,
As
she
my
can't.
colleague said, words matter, and Ms. Heard is condemned by her own words. So Tom, let's please take a look at the words she used in her op-ed, which is Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, and which Ms. Heard published in December 2018, 2 years after she first publicly accused Mr. Depp of being an abuser on May 27, 2016. The title of the op-ed reads, as you can see, quote, Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change, unquote. Below that, Ms. Heard states, quote, then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our wrath for women, unquote. And below that, Ms. Heard states, quote, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse, unquote. Each of those statements clearly refers to Ms. Heard's allegations against Mr. Depp. And taken collectively, their message, their implication about Mr. Depp is clear, i.e. that Ms. Heard is a survivor of domestic abuse. The context in the rest of the op-ed makes that clear as well. Consider, for instance, this line, quote, imagine a powerful man is a ship, like the Titanic. That ship is a huge enterprise. When it strikes an iceberg, there are a lot of people on board desperate to patch up holes, not because they believe in or even care about the ship, but because their own fates depend upon the enterprise, unquote. Everyone in Hollywood knew, and everyone in this courtroom now knows exactly what Ms. Heard intended those words to mean. The ship, the Titanic, is Mr. Depp, and Ms. Heard was the iceberg that sank him. That's precisely what Ms. Heard was saying in the op-ed. And in just the same way, everyone in Hollywood knew, and Hollywood and elsewhere knew exactly what Ms. Heard meant by the words, quote, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, unquote. That was a clear reference to the day 2 years earlier, on May 27th, 2016.
But she lied.
That was 6 years to the day. That's when his life ended. That was 6 years ago to this day, when Ms. Heard, on May 27th, 2016, walked into court with her publicist, Jody Gottlieb, having tipped off TMZ with an alleged mark on her face.
You've never been a good woman, though. I know.
As always, Ms. Heard was quite mindful of her image. She was careful to portray herself as the innocent representative of abuse survivors, and by implication, Mr. Depp as the perpetrator of domestic abuse. She was the woman who, in the words of her title, supposedly, quote, spoke up against sexual violence, unquote. Now, Ms. Heard has done a lot to try to walk away from the title in particular. That's true to form. She has testified that she didn't write it, and she will argue later that she shouldn't be held liable because she didn't write it. But as the court's instructions, which you heard this morning, make clear, Ms. Heard didn't have to personally write any part of the op-ed for her to defame Mr. Depp through implication in the Washington Post.
She republished it.
Please, Tom, turn to Plaintiff's Exhibit 3. Ms. Heard, as you all can see on the screen, retweeted the article, including the title on her Twitter page. Ms. Heard put her name on it. And she proudly declared, quote, today I published this op-ed in the Washington Post, ellipsis, unquote. Her tweet includes the title with the words, quote, I spoke up against sexual violence, unquote, prominently featured. Nowhere in this tweet or anywhere else does Ms. Heard disavow the title. to the contrary. She's proclaiming it. And at the same time, Ms. Heard posted this tweet. She posted another, which you can see right beneath it. Quote, "I'm honored to announce my role as an ACLU ambassador on women's rights." Unquote. Aggrandizing herself at the expense of Mr. Depp. So
Yep.
make no mistake,
Making sure that
This
everybody
was-
knows that she's a women's rights
in
ambassador.
the wake of the Me
That
Too
article's there, and basically
with
putting
her
Johnny Depp
ACLU
in there.
ambassadorship and a major movie coming out, Ms. Heard was trading on her accusations of abuse against Mr. Depp.
Absolutely.
She was reminding everyone of those allegations.
Absolutely.
She was once again taking on the role of her lifetime, the heroic survivor of vicious abuse, or to use her phrase, quote, "a public figure representing abuse." And she was once again casting Mr. Depp as the villain in her drama, the supposed perpetrator of that abuse. When you meet to deliberate this case, you're going to be tasked with several questions. Those questions appear on a form that you will use to reach your verdict in this case. So I'd just like to ask you, please, to spend a few minutes with me going through that. Tom, would you please put up the special verdict form so the jury can see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, down there. Go down, drop it off,
Hard
and
to
back up, and
read,
then
so Tom might please blow it up. Oh, thank you very much. You will see here the first page of the verdict form relating to Mr. Depp's claim for defamation against Ms. Heard. There are 3 pages relating to Mr. Depp's claim, one for each of the 3 defamatory statements in the
Make
op-ed
it a bit bigger so you can all see. This is really interesting.
against Ms. Heard. You've heard those 3 statements many times, but they bear repeating. I promise just once more here. 1, quote, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change," unquote. 2, then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out, unquote. 3, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse, unquote. Now, there are 7 questions that you will need to please answer with respect to each of those statements. So that's 21 questions,
Yeah.
I think, but 7 as to each statement. 1, was the statement made or published by Ms. Heard? 2, was the statement about Mr. Depp?
Yes.
3,
Yeah.
was the statement false?
Yes.
4, did the statement have a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp?
Yes.
5, was the defamatory implication designed and intended by Ms. Heard? 6, was the defamatory implication conveyed to someone other than Mr. Depp?
Yes.
7, did Ms. Heard make the statement with actual malice? Which
Yes.
is, Your Honor, Her Honor explained, meaning did Ms. Heard make the statement knowing it was false or with reckless disregard as to the truth? Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence clearly shows that the answers to those 7 questions are
Yes.
all,
Yes.
and if you answer yes to all of those questions, which you should, we respectfully submit, you will be asked to state the amount of damages to which Mr. Depp is entitled.
Here we go.
In the wake of the Me Too movement, movie producers know better than to cast a movie star who has been accused of domestic and sexual violence.
How much is he going to
And
ask
it is
for?
entirely within your discretion as jurors to quantify the amount of money that constitutes fair compensation for Mr. Depp's pain and humiliation
How much are they going
inflicted
to ask
by
for?
Ms. Heard's defamation. But while Mr. Depp certainly is entitled to monetary compensation,
Oh, here we go.
this case, at least for Mr. Depp, has never been about money.
Yes.
This
He's
case
asking for
for
$1.
Mr. Depp has never been about money, nor is it about punishing Ms. Heard. It is about Mr. Depp's reputation,
No, this is closing statements.
freeing him from the prison in which he has lived for the last 6 years. And
Are they going to ask for $1? What do you think? What do you think? What do you
the
think
most
in the chat?
important questions for Mr. Depp, the ones truly at the heart of this case, are
Because it means
questions
that he's won the
2,
case, but it's not about the money.
4 on the verdict form. And while Tom's pulling that up, let's take question 2. Thank you. Were the statements about Mr. Depp? Yes. 2 points here. 1, when the ACLU pitched the op-ed to the Washington Post, I think you'll remember this, they pitched it as, quote, a piece by Amber Heard, who, as you know, was beaten up during her brief marriage to Johnny Depp, unquote. That's how they pitched it. 2, after the op-ed was published,
it's a comfort gesture.
news
A lot of
outlets,
times people with
including
ADHD
USA
or
Today,
autism,
you've seen that was an exhibit,
you've got ADHD.
characterized the op-ed as referring to Ms. Heard's allegations of abuse against Mr. Depp.
I agree with you, Major. I think so
Today
as well.
interpreted it that way, and so did many other publications. They got exactly the implication that Ms. Heard and the ACLU intended them to have. Tom, if you would please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 409 and 411, if you could put them side by side.
Okay.
And this was expected. This is what they wanted. There had been a lot of press 2 years prior to the publication of the op-ed about Ms. Heard's claims of abuse against Mr. Depp when she
I think it's going to come to it at the end. He's going to say he's entitled to this money on this one. He's entitled to it on this one.
No notice.
He's entitled to it on this one, but he just wants a dollar.
Meaning
I think that's what they're going to do.
the lawyer was not informed, and he was already in New York, which he testified Ms. Heard was well aware of. You don't need a domestic violence restraining order when your husband is halfway across the continent and is heading for a European tour. On May 27, 2016, with a purported mark on her face, everyone knew exactly
A brown smoke.
what Ms. Heard was referring to in the op-ed. She was referring to Mr. Depp.
Yes.
Let's take questions 2 and 3 next, if we can. Were each of the statements false? And did the statements have a defamatory implication on Mr. Depp? Again, the clear answer is yes. The statements, understood in the context of the op-ed itself and in the broader context of the press coverage of Ms. Heard walking into the court with a mark on her face to obtain a domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp in May 2016, clearly imply that Mr. Depp physically and sexually abused Ms. Heard. The overwhelming evidence that you all have heard and has come forward in this case shows that those allegations are false and
Are a lie. Yep. She's lying.
Mr. Depp did not physically abuse Ms. Heard. He did not sexually abuse Ms. Heard. You've heard audio after audio where Ms. Heard admits that she was physically abusing him. While Mr. Depp's name will be forever tarnished by these horrendous and false allegations, this case is about telling you his story and the truth about what really happened, which you've now heard. It is about restoring his lost reputation. It's about showing Mr. Depp's children, Lily Rose and Jack, that the truth is worth fighting for. It is.
Yeah.
And it's about restoring Mr. Depp's name and standing in the community to the fullest extent that you can. And you can do something. And only you, ladies and gentlemen, can do that for him. You heard from Mr. Depp yesterday that he has been carrying these outlandish, outrageous stories on his back.
Yeah.
Pretty stoically.
Yeah.
And living them with them for 6 years and waiting to be able to bring his truth out. And he has told you the truth. the unvarnished truth, even truth that pretty embarrassing. He knew that was going to happen when he brought this case. You've seen the evidence in this case over 6 long weeks, which we again thank you for. That evidence shows overwhelmingly that Ms. Heard's attempt to paint herself as a heroic survivor, an innocent survivor, and Mr. Depp as a terrifying abuser are utterly false. We ask you to please return your verdict for Mr. Depp. We ask you, we implore you to give him his name, his reputation, and his career back. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take
Oh, they should have done it about the dollar. Oh my God, missed the
Mr.
trick if
We'll
they
continue
just
with
done
closing
that.
arguments. We come back, so do not discuss the case with yourselves. Don't do any outside research, okay? Thank you.
Wow. Wow. I wonder why they didn't. I wonder why they got so close. Wow. I mean, good closing arguments. Good closing arguments. Going over the case, showing that there was falsehood, showing that, you know, there were bits and pieces, doing all of that.
So back at 11:05? Oh, okay. Okay, sure.
Why is Elaine objecting or going in for a sidebar now? She was able to object before. They're obviously wanting to do something. Yeah, there's now a 20-minute break, a break so that the court can go for a pee and have a drink and things like that. Right. DUI guy. No, that's Lauren Lumber. So in the corner on the screen, let me shift to this one. On the right-hand screen, just here, this is this guy here in the red suit with the red tie is Law and Lumber. That's Rob. He's actually a lawyer from Virginia. He actually works in this court, has worked with this judge, brought cases with this judge. So yeah, he is a he's on LawTube. Have a look at his case, Law in Lumber. He's a woodworker, and he's the one that broke down the video about the bed and that strip across the bottom of the bed that was allegedly damaged. He's the one that showed how that couldn't possibly happen and how it needed a knife and a sharp thing to split that. Next to him, just behind the security guard here, is Ian Runkle, who is a lawyer from Canada. He's a Canadian lawyer. His channel is called Runkle of the Bailey. And that's again, he breaks down the law. He's been there looking at how the law did it, looking at how looking at how the jurors reacted to the case, going through all of that and basically getting his sort of standing really on or his opinion on how things have gone. So yeah, really interesting, the dynamic. I don't know, you've just seen it there between Johnny Depp and his lawyer, where they're very, very close, him and Camille. Now, a lot of rumors on the internet are saying that they are dating, but I think that does a disservice to both him and to her. I think she is a professional lawyer. I think she is caring and understanding of of Johnny and for her client. But equally, I think that, she is an attractive, intelligent young woman, and it would be mad to think that Johnny wasn't at least a little bit attracted towards her. But I don't know whether she's in a relationship. I don't know what her sexuality is. So the rumors around saying that they are in a relationship, I think is bollocks. But I could see that they've become close, and I could see that they've become friendly. So yeah, so that was nice to see. But again, it will just mean that the tabloid lot are focusing again on their relationship or lack thereof. So there's going to be a 20-minute break. So at 4:05 in the UK time, they will be coming back and doing Amber Heard's closing arguments will be then. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we may have to go out shortly, so I don't know whether or not I'm going to stream for the whole of the closing arguments. So what is your opinion in the chat? You've been watching this closing arguments the same as I have. What is your opinion? What do you think? how do you think the case has been summed up? I've got to say, for in my opinion, I think they've done a fantastic job of closing arguments. They reiterated the case. They really did hammer on the fact that Amber Heard has admitted to abuse. She's admitted to being violent. She's admitted it on those audio clips. I imagine that her side are going to double down on the fact that he's a drunk, that he's on drugs, that he did this, this, and this. However, there are so many times that Amber Heard on the stand under oath has basically said, yes, but that person's lying, that doctor's lying, that trailer park manager is lying, this person's lying, that nurse is lying, all of these people are lying, and I'm the only one telling the truth. And my doctor, Dr. Hughes, my witnesses are the only ones telling the truth. Now, that doesn't make sense when some of these people have nothing to gain. Her team was saying yesterday, oh, you're coming in for your 15 minutes of fame. I don't think that's true. So I think her team, the only thing they can do is double down on the fact that Johnny Depp was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and that he's now got treatment for those. Or they won't talk about the treatment. What they will talk about is the fact that, she is a victim. Look, this is Johnny's team trying to carry on victimizing her. This is Johnny's way of continuing to try and abuse her. This is all Johnny Depp being an evil, manipulative man attacking this woman. And I think all of that is going to be seen through by the jury. I really do. I think there's enough evidence that we've seen so far that, yeah, Johnny isn't the most upstanding sort of pillar of society. He's had his issues. He drinks, he swears, he does drugs. He's a rock star, movie star. That's kind of who he is. But that's kind of who he's always been. And the fact that, as they've said here, when you hire Johnny Depp for a movie role, you get Johnny Depp. And that's the same across the board. And it's almost like they're trying to say, oh, look at this language that Johnny Depp used. He called her a C word. He said that she was an effing this. Right? Okay. I ain't being funny, but, if you're in an argument with someone, you may well use that language yourself. Does that constitute, does that mean you are a domestic violent person? Does that mean you are an abuser? Or does it mean you get angry and you swear? You know what I mean? I think they're very different things. I think the only way her team can win is if they hunker down on the law, and the fact that the argument on the law is that maybe her tweet doesn't constitute republication. And if they can argue that law, if there are the facts for that law, if they ignore all the, he said, she said, what happened in the relationship, if they just argue the fact of this is the law in terms of the tweet, which is what he's suing her for, if they just argue that, I think he's got a chance. Heather Jones, hello, my darling. How are you? Have you been following along? What do you think about this case? I think it's really, really, really interesting. You think Anita says that the closing arguments were very convincing. You do worry, though, what if there is an element of truth in her version of events? I think there is an element of truth in her version of events. I think that they rowed, and I think that at times those rows got out of hand. I think that he defended himself, and I think that, there were times where he was, as he said on the video, which showed him smashing cabinets and things, I think that he beat up cabinets. I think that he got frustrated and he would take things out on the environment around him. I think that just from what I've seen following this day in, day out, I don't believe that he hit her premeditatively. I don't think he struck her first. I don't think he's even hit her back. In every situation, he's trying to remove himself from a fight, and she's taking the fight back to him. So when things have happened, he's removed himself into a bathroom. She then was pushing the door. He went to open the bathroom door and it basically grazed against her toes. She then kicked the door, hit him in the head, and basically almost knocked him out. But even then, he said in his testimony that he was concerned that he'd hurt her feet. And that once she calmed down, you know, he was concerned about her feet rather than anything else. So there's all this testimony from both of them saying that, you know, Jonny is effectively, well, there's testimony from Jonny and all of his witnesses, and also a little bit from Amber Heard's sister, saying that basically Jonny wasn't the instigator. Now, I do think there are instances where, like when they bumped heads, I think that he was trying to restrain her when she was apparently in the midst of an episode, and she was absolutely going for it and lashing out at him, flailing her arms and everything, and he basically got her in a bear hug to try and stop her from hitting him or damaging or injuring herself, because she'd gone off on one. I think that is something that, you know, under those circumstances, I think it'll be very difficult to say whether or not there was damage. Whether or not, you know, that constitutes being restrained. Does that constitute abuse? I don't think it does. I think it constitutes him really being able to defend himself, which legally you're allowed to do. I also believe that where there is evidence in this, I think the evidence, it does show that Jonny is not a nice person when he's drunk and when he's you know, off his tits on drugs. And I don't think he is a nice person at all times. In that situation, when they're having an argument, I think he lashes out verbally. Now they're going to say that constitutes abuse, and of course verbal abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse is abuse, but that wasn't what she was talking about in the opinion piece. And I think for me, I think the damage it could do is in other cases where it is a little bit more, where there is more evidence of an abuser. I think then it's going to be difficult. I don't think people are not going to believe victims in the future, but I think that, you know, and quite rightly so, I think that now when somebody makes alleges a crime and alleges that somebody has abused them, I think that they will have to do more than just say, this person abused me. And I think there has to be a burden of evidence, because, you know, there has to be some sort of evidence, some sort of proof. You can't just say, this person abused me, therefore I am a victim, therefore, you know, that is the truth. You can't just say that without having some sort of evidence to back it up. And I think we've seen other cases where people have been accused of the R word, people have been accused of domestic violence and SA and SV, and it's completely destroyed them. And then it's come out that wasn't the case, and there's been miscarriages of justice and all of these things. And I think it will mean that a victim won't be believed automatically. But I think that is also a fair thing. I think that with the Me Too movement, we got almost to the point that just somebody making an allegation would destroy someone. And now we're seeing kind of the reverse of that actually Amber Heard making these allegations that potentially, we'll see what the jury say, but that potentially were untrue, has caused a lot of damage to the person she was alleging them against. And I think for me, seeing that flip side, it's different when you're talking about cases that are going to court where there is a burden of evidence and they're bringing that evidence to court, like with the Kevin Spacey case, where he's just been arrested in the UK on 4 counts of assault against 3 men. That's a different case. There's enough there for the Crown Prosecution Service to take it to trial. But I think just making the allegation, just saying that accusation, that is enough to do a lot of damage. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think that in terms of if there is an actual, if there is an actual, if there was evidence that Jonny was abusive, it would have come up at some point. This is the bit that I think that is really telling. At no point up until Amber Heard and at no point after Amber Heard has anybody ever come out of the woodwork and said that he hit them or he abused them. Ever. Nobody has ever said that he was abusive within a relationship. There's been people that said, oh, you know, he's punched somebody on the set, or he was, you know, abusive. He swore and shouted at someone on the set, apparently. Whether or not that is proven or not, again, it's that thing that mud sticks. Heather, let's have a look at what your comments are. I haven't ignored you, my darling. I've just been ranting, haven't I? So you've been following this case, absolutely. I honestly don't think Amber is a victim. I think Jonny got I think Jonny got abused. No way that he instigated any of the violence she has said that that he did to him. No, I agree. I don't think that he did. You don't think he's a nice, hang on, I'm trying to read it off the wrong screen. You don't think he's nice at times, but I don't think he physically lashed out. I know he got verbally abusive towards her when he was whacked out of his head. Absolutely. And there's audio about that, but there's also audio where, you know, he uses very, very colourful language. And I don't just mean in terms of swearing. He uses very, very fluid and very kind of flowery language at times. And I think he also, like, he's said things. I wonder if Amber's team are going to bring this up, because he said on one of the text messages, I've got better uses for your throat. Now, I don't think that is saying I'm going to slash your throat. He's basically saying, go down on me. And likewise, in a text sequence between him and his assistant, when they're talking about Molly, I'm going to smash Molly. I'm going to smash her from one end of the room to the other. I'm going to grab that Molly and I'm going to take full advantage, and I'm going to do exactly what I want to Molly. Molly is a nickname on the street for a drug. It's a nickname for MDMA. The fact that this text message was going between him and his assistant, and Jonny's already said that he didn't recognize it, that isn't the way he spoke. And there's evidence to say that these were incoming, not outgoing messages on Jonny's phone. Basically, all of that, they're going to try and say, look, these are examples of him kind of admitting to it. However, I believe there what he's saying is he's couching his text in language. So if it is misinterpreted or if it is intercepted somehow, it's going to hide the fact that he's doing a bunch of drugs. Because, you know, that is what is happening. He's basically going, it's like allegedly somebody I know, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, allegedly for entertainment purposes, somebody I know may or may not have texted a friend of theirs at some point, maybe allegedly, basically saying, can you get hold of any vitamin C because I've got a cold? And the text messages that would come back would be something along the lines of, yes, I can get some vitamin C. I can get it for £20. Now, obviously, that text message, if you look at it, you go, that's a lot of money to pay for vitamin C, but it was code for cocaine. And those text messages, if they were intercepted, you would surmise that it was about drugs. But, you know, it doesn't explicitly say that in the text. And it's the same thing here. When they're talking about Molly, that's MDMA. So if they try and make it that, look, he's talking about smashing Molly, I think that's going to be very clear. He also had all of the messages with, I want to say Paul Giamatti, it's not, is it? With Paul Bettany, Vision in the MCU, where they're talking about, you know, I'm going to burn her, I'm going to put her in a car, and it's Monty Python quotes. And it is literally almost like him saying, you know, I'm not the Messiah, I've been a very naughty boy. And her legal team going, look, he's admitting to being a very naughty boy. And it's like, yes, I shall take off my shoe. Look, He's threatening her with his shoe. He's saying he's going to take off his shoe and hit her. No, he's quoting Monty. I mean, those weren't the text, but he was quoting Monty Python. And yes, I know there's context and all of that, but her legal team were trying to make that be like, this is physical. This is physical. You know, this is evidence that he is an abuser. Look, he's threatening to cut up her body and burn her and all of these things. And it is literally quotes from a film. Not in the way that Amber Heard is quoted from a film, where she's like, oh, being with Johnny Depp, you would think you were the only person and the sun would shine brighter. Hang on, what's the line? And when you're not with him, it would be, and when you're not with him, it would feel so cold. Where she was quoting from various other films. Heather, I'm sorry to hear that, my darling. Thank you for sharing that. Many of us have been through some form of DV or some form of essay or R word. Again, that's why scrolling along the bottom of the screen are some support numbers for here in the UK and also in the United States. They are all 24/7. So if you or anybody you know need support, write those numbers down as they're scrolling on the bottom of the screen, or take a screen grab, or whatever, just in case they're ever needed. They're useful numbers, and again, you'll be able to access those numbers 24/7. Obviously, in a case like this, it shines a light, rightly so, on DV cases and things, and I think that that's really, really important that the light is shone. So if anybody does ever have a friend or anybody they know say that they're going through similar, again, those numbers are there. I just did a Google search for a couple of 24/7 support helpline numbers this morning before I came on, and yeah, so do reach out and get support. Likewise, if you are a survivor, some of the things that are going to come up on this part of closing arguments, this is where you're going to hear the most horrendous allegations against Johnny Depp, and that is going to go into R word, it's going to go into SA, DV, it's going to go into a lot of very, very strong specifics. So if you are somebody who has been or is currently a victim and you are watching this, if you are triggered, just be aware from this point forward there will be massive trigger warnings. Please, please, please look after yourself. And if that means clicking off this stream and going watching something else, please do it. Please look after yourself. You know, as much as I love this community and I love the people that we get to interact with on YouTube, if you are triggered, if you are upset by the things that you are likely to hear, then please do look after yourself. Number one, look after yourself. Whatever that means for you. If you need to go and take time out, if you need to go and watch some silly Disney film, you know, go and watch, I don't know, The Borrowers, or go and watch, you know, Daisy Duck and Donald Duck do disco, or whatever it may be. Go and, you know, make sure that you are protecting yourself. So yeah, first and foremost. Yeah, you know exactly what I mean by the code. Absolutely. I think most people would, but again, it's that thing, isn't it? When you've got somebody saying, look, you know, it would be like Amber's team saying on that text message about vitamin C, look, somebody's buying vitamin C for £20. That's a lot of money to spend. Maybe they could have just gone to a supermarket and bought some effervescent tablets, and completely missing the context and the point and trying to make that point. Heather, you've got numbers in your phone for anyone that you know who needs them. Thankfully, you don't have to deal with that stuff anymore, but you do try to help people who need it. Absolutely, my darling. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why with anything like this, I try and have those numbers on hand. Obviously, here in the UK, we've also got the Samaritans, which is 113 123 116. My brain just misfunctioned then. So yeah, again, Patricia says that you truly believe going through that sort of trauma makes you a better, stronger, and more empathic individual. Absolutely, I do believe that. However, I don't believe that you have to go through that trauma to be an empathic and strong human being. But I do think that quite often you'll find that people who have gone through traumatic experience and survived them, those people do end up developing coping strategies, and a lot of those coping strategies do look like, put it that way, people are more empathic, people are stronger, and people are more able to be aware of their environment. Because quite frankly, if you grow up in a situation where you've got a parent who's going to fly off the handle, you learn to recognize those signs. You learn to maybe be a little bit quieter when that parent is showing the warning signs. And equally, if you've been in a relationship with somebody like that, you learn to when you need to tread on those eggshells and when you don't, or when you need to tread on eggshells on cushions, and when you're just treading on your normal eggshells. You get to know those boundaries and those levels. And I think that a repercussion of that is that you get to become more self-aware in general. You get to become more kind of aware of things because you have that built in. Part of our survival mechanism is that flight or fight response is basically monitoring that. Right, so court is coming back. Just while it does, Heather agrees with you, Patricia, as does Little Miss Budget. She says, I agree.
Okay.
I've gone through so much in my life that I'm a much stronger person now. Absolutely, Ness. I know you've been through, I've had such a rough upbringing. Nessa, you know all I've been through. Exactly. And I think it is one of those things which is incredibly difficult. And it is something that, nobody should have to go through these situations. But those of us who have been through violent situations and, difficult things in the past, I think it does leave its mark. And I think it will leave its mark forever. But equally in Jonny's case, I think, whether you think he's a victim or whether you think, he's that violence against him couldn't possibly have happened. The allegations in these cases are bad enough. You know what I mean? And that what he's going through now is horrendous, let alone the abuse that he went through previously.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. All right, closing arguments, Mr.
Well,
Rottenbush.
he's
Okay,
now
thank you.
so yeah, I agree. If you walk in those shoes, you can understand what is happening to someone who is also wearing the shoes. Exactly, my darling. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Exactly. Yeah. Totally agree. Right, we have no audio
Mr.
for.
Rottenbush, is your mic on?
I believe it is.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Does that work? Okay. In trying to convince you that Mr. Depp has carried his burden of proof in proving that he was never abusive to Amber on even one occasion, think about the message that Mr. Depp and his attorneys are sending to Amber, and by extension to every victim of domestic abuse everywhere. If you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen.
You're not on.
If you did take pictures, they're fake. If you didn't tell your friends, you're lying. And if you did tell your friends, they're part of the hoax. If you didn't seek medical treatment, you weren't injured. If you did seek medical treatment, you're crazy. If you do everything that you can to help your spouse, the person that you love, rid himself of the crushing drug and alcohol abuse that spins him into an abusive, rage-filled monster, you're a nag. And if you finally decide that enough is enough, you've had enough of the fear, enough of the pain, and you have to leave to save yourself, you're a gold digger. That is the message that Mr. Depp is asking you to send. But he doesn't stop there, because in Mr. Depp's world, you don't leave Mr. Depp. And if you do, he will start a campaign of global humiliation against you, a smear campaign that lasts to this very day. He will do everything he can to destroy your life, to destroy your career. That is what they're saying, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what they're trying to get you, the jury, to be an accomplice to. But it's not surprising, because Mr. Depp cannot and will not take responsibility for his own actions. It's always someone else's fault. Just as Ms. Vasquez did, and Mr. Chu did, I would like to extend my thanks to you on behalf of Amber and our whole legal team for the care and the diligence with which you have served as jurors in this matter. You've paid attention to every witness, every piece of evidence, and I can't even imagine the sacrifice that you've made in terms of time away from your friends, your family, your job, to be here on this jury. It's a very important role that you're serving, and we thank you very much. Let's pick up where we started 6 weeks ago in opening statement. You may remember that I asked you to keep a simple question in mind, which is, why are you here? And much of what you've heard during the course of this trial, you don't need to make a decision on in order to return a verdict for Ms. Heard on Mr. Depp's claim of defamation. Now, we'll talk about Ms. Heard's claim of defamation against Mr. Depp, and Elaine will address most of that in a few minutes. But your key question to answer is, does the First Amendment give Ms. Heard the right to write the words that she wrote in this article on December 18th, 2018? That's the question. And you cannot simultaneously protect and uphold the First Amendment and find in favor of Jonny Depp on his claim. You simply cannot. You have to decide, should someone be able to write an article like that in the United States of America without being sued successfully, without having to go through the hell that Ms. Heard has gone through? So let's talk about that. And to do that, we get to explain a bit more about the law that you have to follow. This is the op-ed piece. I'm not going to read it to you again. You heard me read it to you in opening statements. And I would urge you, when you're in the deliberation room, read it. Read it again. And I know we focused on it, here and there over the course of the trial, but the vast majority of this trial has not focused on these words, on this piece. This is obviously the paper edition. There's the online edition as well. Now we get a chance to discuss with you exactly what you have to find about this article. Let's try this again. This is one of the jury instructions that you'll get. And I've been so looking forward to being able to actually explain to you, as the judge read all the instructions to you this morning, and I know it was a lot, but we've been looking forward to being able to explain to you what you're here to decide. Because I imagine for some of the case, it's been kind of unclear. What are you being asked to decide? These are the things that you have to find, and you have to answer yes. As Mr. Chu said, you have to answer yes to all of them in order to find in favor of Mr. Depp. So you have to find that the statement was about Mr. Depp. And you can decide that in the context of the article. And I'll get to the arguments that Mr. Depp raises on that in a minute. You also have to find that the statement is false. And we're going to look at the statements here. We're going to look at each of the three statements. And in order to win his claim, Mr. Depp has to prove every single element. And there's a concept in the jury instructions that you really didn't hear from Mr. Depp's side this morning, but you've all heard it, I'm sure, outside the courtroom, which is burden of proof. It is Mr. Depp's burden to prove each and every one of these elements. If he cannot, Ms. Heard wins. If he cannot prove each and every one of these elements under the burden of proof that's applicable, Ms. Heard wins. And there's two different burdens of proof that we'll get to. For all of them except number 7, the burden of proof is greater weight of the evidence. So you weigh the evidence and you decide, has Mr. Depp proven to you the first 6 elements? The 7th one, for actual malice, the clear and convincing evidence standard, we'll get to in a few minutes. But this is what he has to prove. And he cannot do that. These are the 3 statements. And I know you may be thinking to yourself, wait a second, don't we have to decide if Mr. Depp committed abuse? And the answer is no, you don't have to. Because these 3 statements, you can decide as a matter of law, or as a matter of fact, as you weigh the evidence and the fact that they're true. So the first 2 statements I'm going to address together. Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. Number two, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. When you go back to the jury room to deliberate, you should feel free, like I said, to read the article and think of the article's purpose. The jury instructions also tell you to take these statements in the context of the article. Think about the purpose. The purpose of the article was to promote legislative measures designed to protect victims of domestic abuse. Designed to protect people who did exactly what Ms. Heard did, to speak out. That's apparent in the face of the article. And to do that, Ms. Heard talked about her own life experiences as someone who had obtained a TRO against Mr. Depp, someone who had accused Mr. Depp of domestic violence. Make no mistake, and Mr. Depp's side keeps trying to say that we're somehow suggesting that 2 years before she wrote this, that Ms. Heard hadn't had anything to do with Mr. Depp.
Sorry that happened to you.
You heard Ms. Heard herself say, of course, 2 years before I wrote this article, I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out after she obtained a temporary restraining order against Mr. Depp, after she became a public figure representing domestic abuse. But the words that she wrote here, and then chronicling her own experience after that, those words are true. Those words are true. Similarly, the rare vantage point of seeing, based on her own experiences post May 27th, 2016, how institutions protect men accused of abuse, those words are true, and the First Amendment protects Ms. Heard's right to say them. Now, the third statement is absolutely true as well, but we're going to take that separately because she didn't write it. Under the First Amendment, the statements have to be false in order for Mr. Depp to win. Now, plaintiff addresses, like I said, an argument that we're not making. We're not running from the fact that when she discussed becoming a public figure representing domestic abuse, Amber was speaking of her experiences reporting domestic abuse against Jonny Depp.
So
she admitted to that, but that doesn't make or the statements about Jonny.
Doesn't look like it's going to be. So
think about every piece of evidence that you've heard over the last 6 weeks.
So as long as we can, and then when this ends, I'll recommend you all to head over to a legal data stream.
We all know that it would be a very different article if she had written about what she suffered, that she's told you about over the last 6 weeks.
Sorry, everyone. I know I've been on for 3.5 hours.
Mr. Depp says that the words now have a defamatory implication. He says the statements are the same as saying, Jonny Depp abused me.
I do need to...
But just because he wants to make the article about himself doesn't mean it is. He has to show you that any defamatory implication was
trying to say that the article wasn't about him. It's obviously about him.
Designed and intended by Ms. Heard to convey the defamatory meaning that he suggests. Just because people might read the article and remember, oh yeah, Amber Heard used to be married to Jonny Depp, and she accused him of abuse. That doesn't mean that she designed and intended defamatory implications in writing about herself. And think about it. If Mr. Depp is right, then virtually any statement that anyone could ever make about their own life that implies anything, implies any involvement with any other person, could be defamatory. And that's clearly not what the First Amendment intends. She didn't design and intend the words to be the equivalent of writing Jonny Depp abused me. And you don't have to take her words for it. You can take the words of Terrence Doherty of the ACLU. He said that the op-ed wasn't even Ms. Heard's idea.
I'm sorry you went through that, Heather.
The ACLU wrote the first draft, and great care was taken in drafting the article so as not to make it about Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard's relationship.
Well done for that. Well done.
That's the only evidence presented about Ms. Heard's motive.
She did. She did. She admitted she wrote it about Jonny. Yeah. They're trying to make. They're trying to rewrite history to their narrative. They're trying to think that the jury wasn't there for it. That's also one of the reasons why
women experience.
I'm not going to worry about anything else. Because quite frankly, I can't listen to this bullshit much longer.
And then talk about legislative measures that could help protect people in those positions. That's what she meant, and that's what the article is about. There's no hidden meaning here, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't a hit piece on Jonny Depp. This isn't a hit piece on Jonny Depp. And you can end here. You can end there by saying the statements that she wrote were not false and the First Amendment protects them. Let's talk about the headline for a minute. The headline that was published in the online version only of the article on December 18th, 2018 said, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. few points here. Number one, and this evidence is undisputed. There's no dispute about this. So as you weigh the evidence, you don't have to check your common sense at the door, and you can weigh circumstantial evidence, you can weigh facts, but you can't see evidence where no evidence exists. And the undisputed evidence here is that Ms. Heard didn't write the headline. She didn't approve the headline. She had nothing to do with it. She was not given notice of the headline. She testified.
She quoted the headline. She quoted it on her tweet. We've
You saw her
seen it.
testify about that. But they're calling her a liar. You saw her on the stand testify with your own mouth.
How are any of her team
Exactly what she
going
wanted.
to be seen as legitimate,
For the first
viable lawyers
time,
moving
because
forward? He's
people
literally
who
saying,
have suffered that, they don't want to broadcast that to the world. They want to penalize Ms. Heard for not speaking about that earlier. That's ridiculous, and it's insulting, and it's victim blaming at its most disgusting.
they absolutely have.
The
so
only
many
reference to
lies.
sexual assault in the article, and you can read the op-ed, is sexual assault that she said she had experienced by the time she was of college age, before Mr. Depp. So there is a reference to sexual violence in that article, but it's not by Mr. Depp. And Mr. Depp can't hold her liable for a headline she didn't write that contained something that was not about him. And they want you to think that she republished the headline by tweeting out the link to the online version. So let's look at this.
You can see it on the screen.
This is the tweet that she sent on December 19th.
It's right here. Look, right here. This one here.
Amber
This line
Heard
here.
spoke up against sexual violence. That's the
I'll
online
make it
version.
big, look, so you can all
Ms.
see
Heard
it.
said,
Oh my God.
You can't tweet a piece of paper. So when she wanted to share that she had written this article, what choice does she have? She has to attach that link. And the jury instructions that you have make clear that a hyperlink is not republication. Forwarding a link on does not mean that you broadcast the statement again, but that's what they want to make you think. The only way, and the jury instructions that you have, and we don't need to read through them in detail now, but the republication instruction says that merely linking to an article does not amount to republication, but adding content to a linked article may constitute republication. You must determine whether any added content was intended to reach a new audience. And if you find any content added to the hyperlink was intended to reach a new audience, it constitutes a republication. There was no content added to the article.
What's all that?
From
college campus to Congress, they're balancing the
today I
scale.
published this. That's what she said. She didn't add any content to it. She could have added some of the content that you've heard in this courtroom to it. She could have said, not only did 2 years ago I become a public figure representing domestic abuse, but let me tell you about the domestic abuse that I suffered. That would be adding new content. This is not adding new content. But I guess it's no surprise, because this whole case is about blaming Amber Heard for things she didn't do. But that's what Mr. Depp does. It's what he's always done. Blame other people, refuse to take accountability. But the problem for him here is that he's running headlong into the United States Constitution, which says that you cannot hold Amber Heard liable for words she didn't write or publish.
You
But
can
here
if
we are. And you can decide this case without ever wading into any of the allegations, the facts, the evidence that you've heard about the heinous that Mr. suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. You can decide that by determining that those statements are true and they're protected by the First Amendment. But Mr. Depp brought this case, and he's suggesting that he was never abusive to Ms. Heard. So if that's where you want to make your decision, that's where the road ends for Mr. Depp.
Right. I'm going to end it here for me, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me be very clear.
Go and have a look
Amber
at Emily D. Baker,
abused
the
by Mr.
badass
Depp
lawyer
one
here on
time,
YouTube. She'll be streaming this, I'm sure. I don't.
We're not just talking about
I know she will be, because she changed the whole plan to stream it. Let me see if I can put a link in the
That's what we're talking about.
Hang on. Let me see if I can put a link in the chat. Hang on, everyone.
Mr. Depp define abuse from his own mouth. He admitted all of that when you talked about his childhood. As they reference, his mother called him one eye because he had a lazy eye. And he said that that was worse than the beatings that he took. worse than the beatings that he took. Being called one eye by his mother was worse than the beatings that he took. And after the evidence that you've seen, some of which you're going to see, I want you to think to yourself, being called one eye worse than what he did to Miss Heard? Absolutely not.
He didn't say that.
He agreed with all that. That abuse can
Oh
take
my
many
God.
forms.
He said that.
And
Oh,
you'll
they're
remember
trying
that
to
John
make.
Hughes, Miss Heard's expert, talked about
Right.
the reports of intimate partner violence by Miss Heard, characterized by
Here we
physical
go.
violence,
I'm putting this into the chat,
psychological
everyone.
repression,
I
sexual
just,
violence,
oh my
coercive
God,
control,
it's
and surveillance
so
behaviors.
infuriating. Thank you, everyone. I did these
She said
on
that the
stream,
tests
as
show
you
that
can
there's a
see.
high
I quite
degree
like
of
them,
serious
actually.
violence perpetrated by Mr. Depp toward Miss Heard. She got that opinion and that impression by reviewing the medical records of Miss Heard. She talked about the role of coercive control that Mr. Depp exercised over Miss Heard.
So in the chat now is the link for Emily D. Baker's
things such as
stream.
possessive jealousy, the imbalance of power, not only in physical stature and physical size, but in where they were in their life, in their career. By
I am going to head
intimidation.
off now, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It is
Your partner
4:30.
can
I
absolutely
did
be
say I would be
intimidating
going
you.
through till about
She said
4:30,
that Mr.
and
Depp,
it is
reviewing the
4:30. So
evidence,
boundaries
banging,
now. I know,
throwing,
right?
hitting things in the
They are
house.
twisting
That's
all the, they're
psychological
twisting
aggression.
everything, Heather. But that is their
Punching a
job.
wall, throwing something, screaming, that is abuse.
I
That's
will
abuse,
keep
ladies
an
and
eye out on social
She said
media.
alcohol
If
can
there
just
is
throw lighter fluid off
a result, a verdict given today, I will jump back on a stream. However, I don't think there's going to be today. I think it will be Tuesday onwards. Monday in the US is a holiday,
He's trying to get
so I think it will be Tuesday onwards.
believing
But
that
yeah,
he's carried his burden of proof that never a single time in their relationship was he in any way, physically or non-physically, abusive to Miss Heard. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So let's look at some of that evidence. And
right.
like I said,
Okay.
you can apply your own common
I'm going to
sense. You
go.
don't need to
It is my cut-off time now, so I am going to head off. I am
walk
trying
you
to get better at this cutting off time, these boundaries thing. So I will see you all very, very soon. Please go over and watch the rest of this on Emily D. Baker's channel. I love Emily D. Baker. Thank you so much for all of you for joining me on this stream. I'm going to just pause this now. Hang on,
Miss Heard may have been abusive.
take this one off. There we go. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me on this stream. I will jump back on when the verdict's announced, whenever that is, whether it's today or Tuesday or onwards, because I think it's an interesting thing to react to. But also, I've got a lot of opinions. And as you know, I can talk for England, but I will also be, there'll be a video going up on Wednesday on the Witchy channel. So on Beyond Authentic, the I in Authentic is a 1, and that will be where I react to the very first episode of Charmed, the original series, and break down some of the magical things in that, some of the witchcraft, and give you some of my opinions about that. So I'm going to do a lot more of these Lisa Reacts videos. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have, please give this video a big old like. Do hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And ding the bell so that YouTube notifies you every time we upload a video. And yeah, as I say, just go across here, buymeacoffee.com/Beyond Authentic if you would like to support the channels just a little bit more. There is channel memberships over there. You can buy us a coffee if you want to buy us a one-off coffee. But you can also become a channel member where you will get exclusive live streams, exclusive content. We've got a video coming your way this week to all the channel members, looking at some of the stuff we've done in the garden this last week. So showing you all the veggies that Rufus is growing. Amazing. So that'll be coming up this week because I know some of you were asking about a garden video. So there you go. I will love you and leave you all. I will be keeping an eye on this throughout the day and over the weekend, and I will see you very soon. And as always, stay you, stay true, stay authentic, and I will definitely catch you very, very soon on the next one. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Go and watch Emily D. Baker. Bye.